Chapter 1 Uncle, help me, be a good person to the end. Uncle, help me. Fu Qingye looked through the peephole and saw 5 old men, either bald or pot-bellied, running past the corridor outside the room. Hurry up and chase after them, that little girl took some medicine, she can't have gone far. Hurry up and find her, then the 5 of us can take turns playing with her, hee hee hee. Those 5 old men looked disgusting, and their voices were even more disgusting. Fu Qingye watched them run away, and was about to tell the girl who was pounding on his door to leave. Unexpectedly, her soft and helpless voice came from behind him. 10 minutes ago, he didn't know what happened, but he actually opened the door to this strange girl asking for help. He never liked to get close to any strangers, especially women. He considered himself to be no good, but tonight he made an exception. At that time, the girl outside the peephole was pounding on the door so hard that it was about to split open. She looked panicked, as if a vicious dog was chasing her. As Fu Qingye turned around, Xiao Sisi wrapped herself around him like a vine. Her breath was like fire, and she attached it to his cold, thin lips. At 29, this was the first time he had felt this way about a woman. The next second, the girl awkwardly pried open his lips, and like her, which was on fire, it was as if she had pried open a glacier, getting a cold treatment from head to toe. He opened his deep, alluring eyes wide, clenched her shoulders, and pushed away. Do you know who you're messing with? He narrowed his deep eyes and his voice trembled. Uncle, I'm in so much pain. Please, can you be a good person and help me? The girl's voice was broken, her eyes unfocused. She had her legs wrapped around his waist, and her small, white hands were climbing up his long, slender neck. The man in front of her, although mature, had handsome features and a tall figure. He exuded a dignified air that made him seem unattainable. If I have to lose the most precious thing tonight, at least I won't lose to this man who helped me open the door. Do I look casual? You want it, just take it? Fu Qingye was slightly displeased. Uncle, if it's not impossible, can you help me this once? She felt like she was in a fire, it was so painful. Impossible? These 2 words have accompanied Fu Qingye since he knew what was going on. He never expected that a young girl he just met would dare to provoke him like this. Although he himself also wanted to try it. He lifted Xiao Sisi's tender thighs with both hands, pressed her against the white wall, held her back of the head with one hand, and his scarlet lips went up. Uncle, this is my first time, are you also a virgin? She frowned, her innocent doe eyes full of question marks. She only knew that she needed a man right now, but she didn't know how to use it. The man in front of her was not young, so he wouldn't be as inexperienced as her, right? 2 light blushes appeared on Fu Qingye's cold face. He had to take out his phone under the girl's astonished gaze, pretending to look at the information, but actually secretly checking it to find out how to sleep with a woman. If he hadn't looked up the information, he could have held back, but once he did, he couldn't stop. He was like a wolf that had been hungry for more than 20 years, and he took the young girl who had offended him so many times that night. Unfortunately, the first time was over in just 3 minutes. He was embarrassed. Perhaps he was too excited the first time, and since he was inexperienced, it was over too quickly. Xiao Sisi's fire had only been extinguished a little. She bit her lower lip and helplessly asked again. Uncle, are you okay? Her round eyes were like teardrops, gazing at Fu Qingye with longing. As if she was blaming him for only being able to last 3 minutes. The veins on Fu Qingye's face were popping out, and his extremely magnetic voice replied coldly, how can a man say no? He pushed her back down again. That night, he made her 7 times, each time lasting longer and longer, until she started begging for mercy. Fu Qingye was only a little satisfied. Afterwards, the 2 of them collapsed on the round bed and slept all night. The next morning, Xiao Sisi felt like her whole body had been run over by a car, and her internal organs were reorganizing. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was the man in a bathrobe. He was tall, cold, and arrogant, half leaning on the sofa, a cigarette clenched between his long, white fingers. The smoke curled around his strong face, half covering his features, as he looked at her with a face full of unfulfilled desire. After 29 years, he finally got a taste of a woman. It felt different from what he had imagined, and he was actually addicted to it. Xiao Sisi thought about what happened last night and realized that it wasn't a nightmare. She blushed as she felt the sky falling down around her. No matter what, this handsome uncle had saved her. Although she had lost her precious first time, she had asked for it, and she couldn't hold him responsible for any consequences. She didn't dare to think about how she would have been tortured if the handsome uncle hadn't opened the door. Moreover, he obviously didn't know what to do at first last night. Maybe it was also his first time. "Uncle, thank you last night." Xiao Cici's voice was full of sobs, and she looked as if she was about to break apart with her self-restraint. Fu Qingye's eyes flashed with a dark light. This was the first time he had been so close to a woman, and as a result, he had fallen into a deep state of self-doubt at the sound of her calling him uncle. Was he that old? "I'm only in my 20s, so there's no need to use a respectful form of address with me. Although I am at the tail end of my 20s. Xiao Cici glanced at Fu Qingye, mainly because the aura around him was so strong, and he obviously looked much more mature than her full 20 years, which was why she had called him uncle. "I see, uncle." She quickly corrected herself. "Big brother? Why does it have to be a big word? Where is it big?" He suddenly thought of something and curled his thin lips in satisfaction. Xiao Cici saw that her clothes were all piled up by the edge of the bed, and it was Fu Qingye who picked them up one by one when he got up in the morning. She hid under the covers and put her clothes back on one by one. During this time, she didn't dare to look at Fu Qingye directly. After making sure that she was fully dressed, she lifted the covers and got up. Last night was so intense that she almost passed out halfway through the night. Now, she still felt pain, and her leg didn't move naturally when she walked. The key point was that she was scared and sad at the same time. Thinking that she had already thanked Handsome, and that she shouldn't have barged into his room in the first place, she walked straight towards the door. As she was about to open the door, she heard Fu Qingye's voice behind her. "Wait." Xiao Cici turned her head to look at him. Her innocent little face was flushed with natural pinkness. Her hands, not knowing where to go, nervously grasped the wrinkled hem of her clothes. She looked thin and vulnerable, like a little white rabbit, very easy to bully. "Come here." Fu Qingye extinguished his cigarette butt and gave her a finger wag. Xiao Cici hesitated for a moment, but obediently walked over. She saw Fu Qingye take a gold-embossed business card from his wallet and hand it to her. He rarely gave out his card to people, and this was the first time he wanted to give a woman his card. Although it was this woman who had repeatedly asked him for help last night, he asked her for it for the first time. No, 7 times in total. The young girl looked young and inexperienced. She was drugged by a group of old men last night and chased after her everywhere. Just thinking about it made him feel anxious for her. "This is my business card. You can find me if you encounter any difficulties in Beijing in the future." Chapter 2 Grandma, I already have a woman. Xiao Cici took the golden business card with a very high-quality feel, which only had his name and phone number on it, and nothing else. She thus knew the name of this man, Fu Qingye. Xiao Cici saw for the first time someone whose mobile phone number, except for the beginning, had a long series of 8s at the end. She glanced at it and then memorized his phone number. However, what kind of difficulty did he mean when he said he would encounter difficulties? Something like last night? Although this guy saved her, he messed with her 7 times. She couldn't stop crying for mercy. Could it be that he still wants to do that to her? Thinking about this, Xiao Cici turned pale. "Brother Fu, I will never encounter that kind of difficulty again. Goodbye." After she said that, she left behind her business card and fled in a panic. Fu Qingye thought that she would hug his thigh when she saw his name, but he never expected that someone would actually refuse to accept the business card he gave her. He is the president of the Fu Group and the richest man in the country, but there are still people in Beijing who don't know his name? And, did this little girl misunderstand something? At this time, Fu Qingye received a call from the butler of the main residence. "Old Lin, please tell my grandmother for me that the trick of forcing me to go on blind dates without taking medicine no longer works." Fu Qingye was a little distracted. "Young master, this time the old lady didn't skip her medicine, she jumped into the river." Although she didn't make it, she slipped by the river and was lucky to be saved in time. "You should hurry home." Whether it was true or not, Fu Qingye rushed back to the main house as soon as possible. Ouch! Fu Qingye could hear his grandmother's screams from afar. He pushed open the bedroom door and what came into view was his grandmother's emaciated appearance. Butler Lin was kneading her waist. It looked like she had really fallen. After a period of time, the old lady had gone gray again. Fu Qingye's heart tightened. "You little brat, you're willing to come home? Are you trying to make me die of anger?" You're not even married at your age, and before grandma dies, I'm afraid I won't even get to hold a great-grandchild. How can I face your father in heaven? Ha? I don't care. I'll find 10 beautiful women to come to the house in a little while, and you must go on a blind date with each of them today. After Fu Granny finished speaking, she coughed violently. Butler Lin quickly patted her back. Old lady, don't get angry, it's not good to suffer secondary damage to your waist. Fu Qingye frowned and almost blurted out, Grandma, I already have a woman, so forget about the blind dates. What? Fu Granny couldn't believe her ears. You have a woman? Really? You're not lying to reassure me, are you? When have I ever lied about such things? Fu Qingye asked in return. Fu Grandma thought about it and agreed. She had not been without her share of troubles in the past, and this was indeed the first time Fu Qingye had said he had a woman. How about this, when will you bring your girlfriend home to see Grandma? Fu Grandma said. Fu Qingye wanted to say something else, but at his grandmother's insistent request, he could only agree with a stiff upper lip, and couldn't help but regret having spoken too quickly. The main reason was that when his grandmother asked him to go on a blind date, the innocent little face of the little girl from last night flashed through his mind for some reason. Since morning, he couldn't help but think about the image of the little girl's tear-filled eyes. I wonder where she went now. Unfortunately, she didn't ask for his business card, nor did she leave him her contact information. After reassuring his grandmother and leaving the main house, Fu Qingye dialed the phone number of his special assistant, Ren Xiao, as soon as possible. Help me find a woman. Xiao Sisi, clutching the 100 yuan her grandmother gave her when she left for work, got on the bus back to her hometown. As she watched the tall buildings outside the bus window grow smaller and smaller, her vision blurred with tears. She never imagined that Auntie Lu, a respected neighbor in her hometown, was actually a nightclub hostess. She tricked Xiao Sisi into coming to the city to work, and then sold her to old men 5 at a time. She almost got played by 5 old men in turn. When she was 7 years old, her father died in a car accident, and not long after that, her mother ran away with someone else. As a result, Xiao Sisi was fostered by her aunt and uncle. On the surface, her aunt and uncle raised her, but in reality, she and her grandmother lived together and relied on each other. In her daily life, she had to help take care of her cousins and younger cousins her age, as well as take on a bunch of household chores, laundry, cooking, chopping firewood, and helping the family sell tofu at the stall. She works harder than an ox every day and eats less than a chicken. Since she was a child, her aunt has been saying the same thing over and over, we will support you until you are 18 years old, but after that, don't even think about eating a single bite of food from our family. Xiao Sisi has known since she was a child that no matter how well she studies, her family will not support her through university, and she is destined to work from the time she becomes an adult. She just didn't know that society was so dangerous. Not only had she not earned a single penny in the bustling big city, she had also lost the most precious thing. The skinny girl, huddled in the back seat of the car, cried her heart out. The thought of having done that kind of thing with a strange man last night made her feel ashamed and scared. She could only keep reassuring herself that it was fortunate that the person who had had sex with her was a very handsome and kind older brother, and not one of the 5 older men introduced by Auntie Lu. By the time the car arrived in Xiaoyu village, her eyes were swollen from crying. As a result, as soon as she walked in the door, her aunt Guo Cuihong rushed over and, without saying a word, threw a water scoop at her. You worthless piece of trash, you have the nerve to come back? Auntie Lu was kind enough to introduce you to a big boss, and you just ran away? You didn't earn a single penny, so why did you come back? Xiao Sisi covered her head, which had been hit by the ladle, and said back, holding back her tears, Auntie Lu didn't introduce me to a proper job, she wanted me to accompany an old man. Do you want me to earn that kind of money? It's so hard to make money these days, why not make money if you have the chance? Women will marry someone sooner or later, so it doesn't matter who you sleep with. It's better to sell yourself than to sleep with some poor guy for free in the future. Gui Cuihong had never liked Xiao Sisi, but she never imagined that she would say such things. What you're saying is that you knew what kind of work Auntie Lu was referring to when she introduced me to the city? And you let me go even though you knew? Xiao Sisi was full of disbelief. Gui Cuihong looked away and said, your uncle and I have to pay the mortgage on the house in the city, and your cousins need money for school. Your cousin in particular is going to college, which is expensive, and she also needs a monthly living allowance. The family needs money for everything. Your grandmother needs an operation on her leg, and we simply don't have the money to pay for it. You're an adult now, and it's time for you to contribute to the family finances. You figure it out. apologize to Aunt Lu. She might be willing to take you into the city with her. If you can't find a good job after graduating from high school, you should hurry up and make some quick money while you're still young, and then find an honest man to marry when you're about the same age. Xiao Sisi thought she had cried her tears dry, but when she heard this, her tears flowed uncontrollably. In the year since graduating from high school, she had been helping her family sell tofu, and all the money she earned went to her aunt and uncle. Now it seemed that she could no longer stay in this family. From now on, I won't come back. I'll go out and work, okay? The only one she was worried about was her grandmother. If she didn't have surgery for her old leg injury, she was afraid she would never be able to walk again. She knows that the operation will cost at least 100,000 yuan, and her uncle has not said a word about it. Her grandmother can hardly sleep at night because of the pain, but she endures it without making a sound, so as not to cause trouble for the family. Xiao Sisi wants to earn money to pay for her grandmother's operation, but not in the way that Guo Zuihong wants. It's fine to go out and work, but I'm not asking you to go to a factory and work on an assembly line. If you want to make a lot of money, you have to go with your Aunt Lu. Guo Zuihong tries to persuade Xiao Sisi to sell things. Xiao Sisi gave her a desperate glance and turned away. Xiao Xing'an, her uncle, heard the argument and came out, but Xiao Sisi was already far away. He called out to her. But Xiao Sisi pretended not to hear and kept walking. Cui Hon, don't go too far. Hiding Xiao Sisi's university acceptance letter made me feel bad enough already. Don't you drive the child to her death, Xiao Xing'an whispered angrily. If I didn't hide her notice, would you have paid for her university education? Or would you have let your daughter drop out of school and let a stranger go to university? Besides, you gave your tacit consent at the time. We have done our best by raising her until she came of age. Now it's her turn to earn money to support our family, Guo Zuihong said angrily. Xiao Xing'an was speechless. At that time, after discussing it with his wife, he hid Xiao Sisi's university admission notice. After all, if his niece knew that she had been admitted to university but he would not let her go to school, but instead sent his own daughter to junior college, it would be really hard to explain. Of course, he selfishly also hoped that Xiao Sisi would earn money to help support the family. Xiao Sisi still didn't know that she had been admitted to university. After she left the Xiao family, she had no idea where to go. After last night's experience, the glamorous life in the big city made her, who had nothing, extremely fearful. As she wandered in front of the bus stop at the village entrance, a familiar number appeared on her shabby phone. Isn't this Fu's phone number? Although she hadn't accepted the business card he gave her in the morning, she remembered that his phone number ended in 8. While she was in a daze, a Rolls-Royce stopped in front of her. Chapter 3, Be My Woman. The window lowered. Xiao Sisi wiped away the blurry vision, and what fell into her eyes was a perfectly handsome profile. She was dumbfounded. Why was Fu Chengye in Xiaoyu village? And why did he know her phone number? She didn't seem to have given him her number this morning. Did he follow her here? Fu Chengye turned his head to look at the stunned Xiao Sisi, hung up the phone, and his eyes fell on her red eyes. He couldn't help but frown. Why did she always look like she was in tears whenever he saw her? Brother Fu, why are you here? And why do you know my phone number? Xiao Sisi asked nervously. Get in the car. Fu Chengye tilted his head to the side, indicating for her to get in. Ren Xiao in the driver's seat quickly got out of the car, jogged over to Xiao Sisi, opened the back seat door for her, and respectfully said, Miss Xiao, please get in the car. Since receiving the task of investigating Xiao Sisi in the morning, Ren Xiao had been incredibly puzzled. He had originally thought that Fu Chengye, who did not get close to women, would not work, but unexpectedly, after checking the surveillance footage, he discovered that this girl had actually spent the whole night in Fu Chengye's room. In the morning, she left his room with tears in her eyes, and even her walking posture had changed. Tut tut. How do you guys know my name and phone number? What do you want? Xiao Sisi was extremely uneasy. Her voice was trembling, and she simply did not dare to get into the car. Ren Xiao looked helplessly at Fu Chengye in the car. Fu Chengye asked back in a deep voice, What do you have? Are you so afraid of me? Xiao Sisi's body stiffened, and she realized that she really had nothing, not even the most precious first time of a woman. What was there to be afraid of? Then why are you looking for me? She asked, blushing. It's not to ask her for compensation, is it? Be my girlfriend. Fu Chengye said directly. What? Girlfriend? Xiao Sisi raised her voice. Ren Xiao, who was standing nearby, also widened his eyes, with an expression of being on the edge of his seat. Let's talk in the car. Fu Chunye prompted again. Xiao Sisi was extremely uneasy. After what happened last night, she had run away faster than a rabbit and hadn't had the chance to chat with Fu Chunye. There was no use avoiding certain things, she had to face reality bravely. Xiao Sisi then sat in the back seat, so nervous that she didn't know where to put her hands. Ren Xiao was about to sit back in the driver's seat when Fu Chunye ordered, "Stand outside for a while. Don't drive until we're done talking." It was a hot day, with temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius. Fu Chunye actually told him to stand outside the car? He would be baked to a crisp. However, he dared not disobey Fu Chunye, so he stood guard with a small black umbrella, tears in his eyes. In the car, Fu Chunye once again specifically said to Xiao Sisi, "Pretend to be my girlfriend. Is 30,000 yuan a month enough for you?" 30,000? Xiao Sisi thought she heard it wrong. Is that too little? He had deliberately investigated the wages of ordinary employees in the group, and 30,000 should not be considered small. No, 30,000 is a lot. Xiao Sisi hurriedly waved his hands. That's fine, if there are no problems, I can pay your first month's salary in advance. Brother Fu, why do you want me to pretend to be your girlfriend? How long is the contract for? Xiao Sisi asked nervously. She desperately needed money right now, and she was at her wits' end. Pretending to be Fu Chunye's girlfriend and earning 30,000 yuan a month was much better than selling herself. Of course she was willing. My grandmother is getting old, and the greatest wish of an elderly person is to see my other half. The contract will be for 1 year. With a monthly salary of 30,000 yuan, wouldn't she earn more than 300,000 yuan a year? Then, the surgery fees for her grandmother would not be a problem. Xiao Sisi nodded excitedly. She knew that she had no choice at all right now, and she quickly nodded in agreement when she thought about the money waiting for her grandmother's leg surgery. The sound of knocking came from inside, and Ren Xiao, who was sweating profusely, put away his little black umbrella and couldn't wait to get back into the car. Depart for the old house, Fu Chunye said. Ren Xiao widened his eyes, wondering, is this too fast? Meeting the parents directly? Fu big brother, what should I do next? Xiao Sisi was a little uneasy. Meeting the grandmother. Ah? So soon? Xiao Sisi couldn't help but become nervous. She wasn't mentally prepared. Regret it? Fu Chunye raised his eyebrows slightly. No, brother Fu. Don't worry, I will work hard. It's just that when I meet my elders, how should I cooperate? Should we practice in advance? Xiao Sisi was worried that if she didn't cooperate well, it would be obvious. Didn't we cooperate well last night? He whispered an ambiguous sentence. Xiao Sisi blushed all the way to her ears. Fu Chunye stared at her red ears and raised the corner of his lips. Ren Xiao, who was driving, was shocked and couldn't control his expression. The two arrived at the Fu family's main residence. Although Xiao Sisi could tell that Fu Chunye was rich, she never imagined that his family home was located in the most prosperous area of Beijing, and that the villa's footprint was larger than the entire Xiaoyu village. When the car stopped in the garden full of blooming flowers, she was so nervous that her palms were sweating. Fu Chunye got out of the car first, and as he opened the door, he squeezed her sweaty little hands. Xiao Sisi took a deep breath before following him out of the car. Brother Fu, I'm a little scared. Can you teach me what to do when I meet the elders? Xiao Sisi was having second thoughts. Just act naturally. Also, I think you should change the way you address me. I know I'm older, but you don't have to keep emphasizing the fact that I'm older when you don't need to. Fu Chunye gave a hint while looking quite pleased with himself. Xiao Sisi wondered, is being older a reason to be happy? Why are you so pleased with yourself? Then what should I call you? Xiao Sisi asked obediently. Call me brother. He likes being older, but doesn't like being addressed with big characters. After saying that, he squeezed her little hand and strode into the hall. Brother? Xiao Sisi blushed when she thought about it, inexplicably feeling that calling him brother was very ambiguous. She felt that she simply couldn't call him that, so she whispered, is it okay to call you by your name? Fu Chunye glanced at her sideways. The young girl was innocent and pure, and the visible tension on her fair face actually aroused his desire to protect her. Fine. He obediently replied. As the two of them stepped through the door, the servants waiting on either side greeted them in unison. Good day, young master and young lady. Xiao Sisi was taken aback by this display, and she couldn't help leaning towards Fu Qingye. Unexpectedly, he cleared his throat and corrected everyone, "It's the young lady." Everyone was shocked and quickly corrected themselves, "Hello, young lady." Xiao Sisi waved at everyone helplessly. She was only pretending to be his girlfriend, but he actually let everyone address her as young lady? Xiao Sisi blushed like a tomato, but Fu Qingye was very satisfied with how everyone addressed her, and he took her hand and continued walking towards the stairs. Chapter 4. Fu Qingye has never been in a relationship before? As they walked through the resplendent hall, Xiao Sisi couldn't help but look around. She had never seen such a magnificent mansion before, and it was hard to imagine that a house could be decorated so extravagantly. She felt like she had intruded into a world that didn't belong to her. The clothes she was wearing were not even as valuable as the fabric of the house. Although she was scared, she could only muster up the courage to act as graciously as possible, thinking that this was her job. The two of them held hands as they entered Grandma Fu's bedroom. Grandma Fu was so excited to learn that her grandson had brought his girlfriend home that she got out of bed. She had been worried that Fu Qingye had just been talking casually about having a girlfriend, but she never expected him to bring someone home so soon. This was the first time in her life that Grandma Fu had seen Fu Qingye holding the hand of a girl, so she was beyond excited. She took 3 steps at once to greet Xiao Sisi, and with eyes full of love, she shook her hand. Xiao Sisi's nervousness eased a lot the moment she saw the kind old lady. At least everyone in this family is friendly to her. Little girl, what's your name? How old are you? How long have you been dating Qingye? Grandma Fu couldn't wait to find out about them. Grandma, my name is Xiao Sisi, I'm 20 years old, and we've just been dating for a month. Isn't this what you were pushing me to bring home a girlfriend for? Are you satisfied now that you've seen someone? Qingye said quickly. Xiao Sisi let out a sigh of relief. It seems that she just needs to relax a little bit, and if the elderly ask questions she doesn't know how to answer, Fu Qingye will help her out. Grandma Fu nodded with satisfaction, while looking up and down at Xiao Sisi. The young girl is fair and clean looking, and seems obedient and adorable. In an instant, Grandma Fu's headache and back pain disappeared, as if she had taken a tonic, and all her problems were gone. She had been worried that Fu Qingye would remain a bachelor for the rest of his life, but she had never imagined that he would actually have a girlfriend. Sisi is only 20? So young. You're quite something. Grandma Fu smiled and pointed at Fu Qingye. Ahem. We're both adults in our early 20s, there's no such thing as being young or old. Fu Qingye seemed to mind being called old, as if that made last night's actions seem like the actions of a beast. An old cow eating tender grass, and you're still making wisecracks? Grandma Fu lowered her voice. Fu Qingye felt a little uncomfortable, and his handsome face looked a little uneasy. Xiao Sisi was amused. But then she thought, their relationship is fake, and she has indeed been taken advantage of by Fu Qingye. She suddenly didn't feel amused anymore. In the future, you have to treat your girlfriend with care, understand? Fu Grandma gave him a serious lecture, afraid that Fu Qingye, who had no experience in love, didn't know how to treat people with care, and it would be bad if he made his girlfriend, who had finally been brought home, angry. I know. Grandma, you didn't hurt your back very badly, did you? How come you can suddenly get up? Fu Qingye asked. Grandma Fu then remembered that she had used her back pain to trick her grandson into coming home for a blind date during the day. She quickly covered her back, groaned twice, and then said, "It did hurt quite a bit, but it stopped when I saw Shishi." Ha ha! Grandma Fu took Xiao Sisi's hand again and said, "Sisi, Qingye has never been in love before, so he may not know how to take care of you. If he ever treats you badly, just come to Grandma and I'll scold him for you." What? Big brother Fu is so old, and he's never been in love before? Xiao Sisi was full of disbelief. Realizing that she had spoken too quickly, she quickly corrected herself. What I mean is, before me, has Qingye never had a girlfriend? Isn't that right? He's got such a bad personality. It's lucky you're willing to go out with him, otherwise no one else would want him. Xiao Sisi covered her mouth and snickered, wondering if Fu Qingye, with his perfect qualifications, had never had a girlfriend before because he was just too picky. Grandma, you've met the person, so from today on, can you stop calling me every other day and annoying me? Fu Qingye coughed twice. Come with me for a moment. Fu Qingye was called aside by Grandma Fu, who whispered, I don't think Shishi is the actress you're looking for, is she? I'll tell you what, I really like this girl, so you'd better hurry up and marry her, and don't tell me you're breaking up with her again, got it? I know, I know. From today on, she will live in my house, and if we decide that we are suitable for marriage, we will get married naturally. Fu Qingye held on as long as he could. By letting Xiao Sisi live in his house, his grandmother naturally would not push him to go on a blind date anymore. Grandma Fu also knew that this kind of thing could not be rushed, and the young people needed to be given some time. In any case, she was already very happy that Fu Qingye had brought someone back. I'm warning you, Grandma will be calling you guys on video regularly, and even pay surprise visits to make sure you're really dating. Grandma Fu looked like she had everything under control. Fu Qingye gave a helpless smile. Whatever. He's already invited someone home, what's there to worry about? After Fu Qingye left, Grandma Fu's excitement turned to worry. Butler Lin couldn't help but ask, Madam, shouldn't you be happy that your grandson has brought a girlfriend home? Why do you look more worried than before? Yesterday, when I urged Qingye to go on a blind date, he told me to give up hope, saying that he would never get married. But today, he suddenly brought home a girlfriend. It's too fast, and I'm worried it's not real. The more Fu Grandma thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. Butler Lin, go check out Shishi's information, and it would be best if you could also find out the timeline of their time together. Yes, madam. Also, tell Butler Do over there to keep a close eye on them and see if they are really dating. Grandma Fu was desperate to hold her great-grandson, and cannot afford any mistakes. Fu Qingye's private residence is Villa 8 at Royal View Villa. Although it is not as impressive as the main villa complex, only the top rich people in Beijing can live in Royal View Villa. The villa area is extremely private, with each building having its own private space. The interior of the villa is grey and low-key luxurious, matching Fu Qingye's sense of coldness. Xiao Sisi still felt uncomfortable walking into the mansion, and always felt like she didn't belong there. However, Fu Qingye's household had far fewer employees than the main residence, just a butler, 2 cooks, and a few maids. Among the staff, except for Butler Do, the men were young, but the maids were at least in their 40s, and there were no young women in the household. As soon as Xiao Sisi arrived, everyone's strange stares fell on her face at the same time. This was the first time a young and beautiful woman had appeared in Fu Qingye's private residence, so everyone was more than surprised. Xiao Sisi's face flushed, and she looked at Fu Qingye helplessly, her body unconsciously close to his. My girlfriend, you can call her young wife. Everyone should take care of her in the future. Fu Qingye instructed the crowd. Hello, young wife. Everyone's eyes lit up when they looked at Xiao Sisi. Chapter 5, she vowed to serve Fu Qingye well. Fu Qingye's family is full of long-serving employees. After work, they usually discuss Fu Qingye's love life. Everyone in the family knows that he was kidnapped as a child, which caused him to be injured and affected him in that area. In everyone's eyes, Fu Qingye is a eunuch. Although he is rich, he is destined to grow old alone, and he can't play with women either. Unexpectedly, he actually has a girlfriend? Everyone couldn't wait to chatter after seeing Fu Qingye lead his young girlfriend upstairs. I thought the young master couldn't do it? He actually has a girlfriend? People only confirmed that he was an only child, not that he was impotent. He can still play around. Sai, the undisputed richest man in the family, is also an only child, and he's actually an only child. Xiao Sisi followed Fu Qingye to his bedroom next door. As soon as the man and woman entered the room, the atmosphere became a little strange. She couldn't help but think about what had happened with him last night, and she was so nervous that she didn't dare to breathe heavily. From now on, this will be your room. You can help yourself to anything in the house. Fu Qingye broke the silence. It's fine. Xiao Sisi looked at the luxurious, large bedroom and felt extremely constrained. She felt unworthy. Let's connect on WeChat. I'll transfer this month's salary to you, said Fu Qingye. Xiao Sisi opened her phone, but because it was so old, it took a long time to open WeChat. Her embarrassed face turned red. After finally entering the page, she saw a message from someone named Qingye requesting to add her as a friend, so she quickly clicked through. Then she looked up and said, "It's already been approved." Fu Qingye glanced at her small, old phone and frowned. He didn't know if such a broken phone was still usable. Without saying anything else, he transferred 30,000 yuan directly to her. Xiao Sisi was stunned when she saw the 30,000 yuan transfer. To her, 30,000 yuan was an astonishing sum. She couldn't think of any job that could earn that much money in a month, and what's more, it was only her first day at work and her boss had already transferred the money. She vowed secretly that she would serve Fu Qingye well. "Mr. Fu, I won't be rude, when will you draft my contract?" Xiao Cixi's always red little face finally had a smile on it. She had a very infectious smile. His heart suddenly skipped a beat as he gazed down at her rosy little face. "Forget the contract, you'll get paid on time every month on this day. If I forget, you can remind me. Don't worry. You need to be employed for at least 1 year. If you resign before the year is up, you'll be paid for the whole year." Xiao Cixi was so excited that she almost jumped up at the news. For a moment, she forgot what happened between the two of them last night. Sure enough, money can buy happiness. After arguing with her aunt and feeling like she had nothing to live for, what Fu Qingye said had simply rekindled her hope for life. She suddenly realized that in this real world, as long as you have money, nothing is scary. After Fu Qingye left the room, Xiao Cixi clicked to pay. She couldn't help looking at the 30,000 yuan in her coin purse again and again, unable to believe that it was really hers. She did some calculations and found that if she worked for 3 to 4 months, the Fu family would provide her with food and accommodation, and she would be able to take her grandmother for a foot operation if she didn't spend any money. If she worked for a year, she could even save enough money to buy a small house in her hometown, and then she could take her grandmother there to live with her and never have to worry about other people's opinions again. Thinking about this, she was full of energy. But then she suddenly realized that she didn't have to do anything, she just had to pretend to be someone's girlfriend. The reason Fu Qingye chose her might be precisely because of their brief encounter last night. Thinking about all this, and that she had just given up her precious first time, she suddenly felt a little lost. She kept reassuring herself that she was already very lucky to have met the kind, handsome, clean and wealthy Fu Qingye, rather than being ruined by 5 old men. From now on, she must forget that night, get her priorities straight, and be Fu Qingye's good employee, his good girlfriend. In the blink of an eye, she had been living in Fu Qingye's house for 3 days. He was busy, going out early and coming home late, and he lived in the room next to Xiao Cixi's, so the two of them hardly ever met. Xiao Cixi had a lot of free time. When she had nothing to do, she tidied up the house. Although the servants cleaned every day, Fu Qingye's staff might not have been managed well, and often only superficial cleaning was done. Xiao Cixi was not used to ordering people around, but in order to be worthy of her 30,000 yuan salary, she would go through all the cabinets and drawers in the house and tidy them up. All of this was seen by the old maid, Auntie Zhu. That afternoon, Xiao Cixi went downstairs to eat, and as she was about to go back to her room, Auntie Zhu stopped her. "Miss Xiao, the toilet on the first floor is blocked, go unblock it." She had a fierce expression. Xiao Cixi froze for a moment. She had been in the Fu family for many days, and everyone in the family treated her with respect, except for this Auntie Zhu, who never gave her a good face. She never expected that she would actually ask her to unblock the toilet. "Auntie Zhu, isn't this your job? Why should I go?" Xiao Cixi asked in return. Auntie Zhu was a little surprised. She didn't expect that this meek little rabbit would actually resist. "Miss Xiao, don't think I don't know. You're just a young woman the young master hired to deceive the old lady. The old lady is no pushover. She told Butler Du to keep an eye on you, and Butler Du assigned this task to me." Xiao Cixi's face paled, but of course she would never admit that she and Fu Qingye were in a contractual relationship. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you remember Qingye telling you to call me young mistress? You're ordering me around, and you're not afraid I'll tell Qingye?" Xiao Cixi forced herself to adopt the posture of the mistress of the house. But she was so small and vulnerable, and really didn't have any presence. "Ha, look at what a sorry state you're in. You're worthy of our young master? Don't think I don't know, you don't sleep in the same room at night. If you don't go unblock the toilet obediently, be careful I tell the old lady about this." Auntie Zhu raised her voice to threaten. It seemed as if she wanted the whole family to know that Xiao Cixi did not sleep with Fu Qingye at night. Xiao Cixi was shocked. She really hadn't slept in the same room as Fu Qingye, and she couldn't help feeling guilty. She really valued her job and was really afraid of being fired. Although Fu Qingye had said that he would pay her a year's salary even if she quit in the middle of the year, she had worked for less than a week, so how could she ask for a year's salary? In order to avoid Auntie Zhu shouting again, she gritted her teeth and obediently went to unblock the toilet. Seeing this, Auntie Zhu wickedly raised the corners of her lips. Originally, she had wanted to introduce her niece to Fu Qingye, but she never expected Xiao Cixi to suddenly show up, so of course she didn't like her. Xiao Cixi went to the toilet that Auntie Zhu had mentioned. She couldn't believe that the magnificent Fu family had such a dirty and disgusting toilet. As soon as she entered the toilet, she was surrounded by a stench that almost made her vomit. She didn't know that no one had used this toilet, that the toilet bowl had just broken down, and that Auntie Zhu had deliberately made it dirty and disgusting so that no one would use it. Xiao Cici was used to doing dirty work in the countryside, so although it was disgusting, it didn't bother her. She found a cloth and tied it over her nose, then rolled up her sleeves and got to work. After about 5 minutes, the sound of Fu Qingye's voice came from outside the door. "Where's the young mistress? He's been looking for her since he got home." Chapter 6, He cares for her and protects her. Fu Qingye goes out early in the morning and returns late at night every day, so he hardly has time to meet Xiao Cici. It was only when Fu's grandmother called and asked to video chat with them that he remembered his girlfriend at home. Having been single for a long time, he is used to working at a high intensity and has almost forgotten about life. After entering the living room, he looked around and his gaze fell on the somewhat panicked face of Auntie Zhu. Auntie Zhu didn't expect Fu Qingye to return at this hour. She stammered, not daring to say a word about her ordering Xiao Cici to unblock the toilet. "What's wrong?" Fu Qingye immediately noticed the panic in Auntie Zhu's eyes. Suspicious, he dialed Xiao Cici's phone number. The ringing sound came from the direction of the toilet. Fu Qingye held the phone and walked towards the toilet. The obese Auntie Zhu tried to block him, but Fu Qingye pushed her away so hard that she stumbled and fell to the ground. When he arrived at the door of the stinking toilet, he saw Xiao Cici, who was carefully flushing the toilet with a piece of cloth tied to her nose, and his eyebrows furrowed. While anger welled up in his heart, a vague pain also arose. "Who told you to clean the toilet?" Xiao Cici really wanted to do a good job and didn't want to get fired, but unfortunately her relationship with Fu Qingye was fake, and she couldn't pretend it was real, which is why she was being threatened. Fu Qingye ignored the dirty, smelly toilet plunger Xiao Cici was holding in her hand, grabbed her wrist, and discarded the plunger, then pulled her out of the smelly toilet. "What's going on? Who bullied you?" Fu Qingye asked sternly. Xiao Cici glanced at Auntie Zhu on the side, who immediately returned a very fierce glare, as if to say, "Bitch, if you dare to bullshit, I'll fix you. Speak." Although Auntie Zhu's fierce appearance was very frightening, Fu Qingye's cold aura was not to be trifled with. Xiao Cici pondered, she was Fu Qingye's employee, not Auntie Zhu's, so naturally she listened to Fu Qingye's words. Only then did she muster the courage to say, "It was her who told me to clean the toilet. She said we were a fake couple and that she was going to tell grandma about it." Auntie Zhu's horizontal muscles on her face twitched. She never thought that this little bitch would dare to snitch on her. Her glare at Xiao Cici became even more fierce, as if she wanted to kill her, which was terrifying. Xiao Cici reflexively hid behind Fu Qingye, clutching the corner of his shirt with her small hands. Fu Qingye's cold gaze then fell on Auntie Zhu's face, and Auntie Zhu quickly withdrew her warning glare, hastily saying, "Young master, it was the old lady who told me to keep an eye on her. I was just following orders to test her out. I never expected that she would be so guilty-minded as to go and wash the toilet. I didn't force her to do it. The old lady had good intentions, hoping that you would find a true love, not a liar to fool her old lady. Do I need you to tell me what to do in my life?" Fu Qingye's face was dark and his tone was very harsh. Even the veteran Zhu Yi was scared and didn't dare to speak. She spoke in a low voice, pretending to be pitiful. No, young master, why are you making things difficult for us working people? I was just following the old lady's orders." Fu Qingye narrowed his deep, dangerous eyes and didn't want to hear any more of her excuses. He spoke in a harsh voice with no room for negotiation. "Get out. Don't let me see you in Jing City again." Zhu Yi then realized that she was finished. She never expected that even after she had brought up the old lady, Fu Qingye would still protect the little bitch. She really underestimated the status of Xiao Cici in Fu Qingye's heart. Since it was already like this, she simply decided to throw in the towel and yelled, "Young master, am I wrong? This woman is dressed in cheap street clothes, she doesn't sleep with you at night, she'll flush the toilet if you ask her to, and she's obviously from the countryside. How can she be suitable for you? You're obviously just a fake couple, and I only sided with the old lady because I was worried that you would delay your marriage. Where did I go wrong? I've worked for the Fu family for so many years, how can you fire me because of a female liar?" Fu Qingye's face darkened, and he glanced at Xiao Cici's white blouse. His heart tightened. "If you don't leave, I'll have you thrown out." He clenched his fists and his gaze was cold and sharp as a knife. Auntie Zhu's face paled. Of course she knew that Fu Qingye was not as gentle and polite as he appeared to be. He was notorious in the business community for his ruthless tactics. He had only told her to leave Beijing, already considering her an old employee. She then slunk out. In the lobby, there were a few employees not far away doing their work. Everyone watched this scene and didn't even dare to breathe. The whole family was discussing the fact that Fu Qingye and Xiao Sisi slept in separate rooms, so they concluded that they were a fake couple. Until they saw what happened to Auntie Zhu, everyone secretly held their breath, and were glad that they had not participated in bullying Xiao Sisi. Fu Qingye's bloodshot gaze swept the room, and the employees who were watching, afraid of getting involved, quickly left the lobby. The hall was left with only Fu Qingye and Xiao Sisi. His gaze fell back on Xiao Sisi. She had just worked in the stinking toilet and felt dirty all over. When she met his gaze, she felt uncomfortable and backed away, trying to distance herself from him, for fear of offending him with her stench. Feeling Xiao Sisi's humility, his heart tightened. Grandma was right, he was inexperienced in love and had indeed neglected her. As the richest man in the country, even if she is a fake girlfriend, it is really embarrassing that his girlfriend is wearing cheap goods, using a broken mobile phone, and even the maid is riding her head. He let her come to his side, not to be bullied. "Let's go," he said softly. Xiao Sisi lifted her big red eyes, and tears were rolling in her eyes. "Mr. Fu, don't fire me, can you give me another chance?" He gave a helpless smile. He had made his voice as gentle as possible, but she was still afraid of him. "I mean, go to the mall," Fu Qingye explained. "Huh?" Although Xiao Sisi didn't know what to do at the mall, she was at least able to confirm that Fu Qingye was not going to fire her, so she felt a lot better. "Can I go take a shower?" Otherwise, she always felt like she stank all over, and it was really not good to go out with Fu Qingye. "Go ahead, I'll be waiting for you." Xiao Sisi nodded like a nodding duck and quickly went upstairs. After a while, she finished washing up. Although she was still dressed plainly, she exuded a refreshing fragrance and regained the youthful vigor she should have. Fu Qingye drove himself to the shopping mall owned by the Fu family near their home. He led her into the women's clothing area. "Let's go into whichever store we like after taking a look at the style." Xiao Sisi realized that Fu Qingye was taking her out to buy clothes. It was to be expected, after all, she was pretending to be his girlfriend, and she was indeed dressed too shabbily. No wonder that Auntie Zhu had bullied her. He was tall and handsome, walking in front in a suit, while Xiao Sisi followed behind him. Many passers-by glanced at Fu Qingye, but he didn't look away, and his aura was very powerful. The two walked in a circle, and Xiao Sisi didn't go into any of the shops. Chapter 7, If anyone dares to bully you, give me a call. What's wrong? Don't like the clothes here? Fu Qingye suddenly stopped walking. Xiao Sisi was walking with her head tilted, and she bumped directly into his broad back. She rubbed her face miserably and took 2 steps back. "No, all the clothes here look really expensive. Why don't we just order them online?" Xiao Sisi had never shopped for clothes in a big shopping mall before. The next second, Fu Qingye squeezed her hand and walked straight towards a women's clothing store called MZ. After browsing around for a while, he felt that the sweet and gentle style should suit Xiao Sisi very well. The store manager recognized Fu Qingye at once. After all, this was a shopping mall owned by the Fu Group, and Fu Qingye had appeared at the opening ceremony once. He is extraordinarily handsome and has a prominent status, and no one who has seen him can forget him. At this time, the manager of MZ even thought he had mistaken. Did President Fu actually bring a young girl into the store to buy clothes? She dared not neglect him and hurriedly greeted him. "Hello, President Fu, what can I do for you? Are you buying clothes for the young girl?" The manager was careful, for fear of offending the big boss by saying the wrong thing. "I'm buying clothes for my girlfriend, you take care of it." Fu Qingye sat down on the black leather sofa in the store, crossing his long legs. It was a very ordinary sitting position, but it gave off a sense of majesty like an emperor. The envious glances of the entire store were cast over, and Xiao Sisi's face suddenly turned red. "Mrs. Fu, let me take your measurements." The store manager was the most composed. After learning that she was Fu Qingye's girlfriend, everyone was extremely enthusiastic, and all the employees in the store gathered around to serve Xiao Sisi. The store manager helped her choose the clothes herself, so Xiao Sisi didn't even need to do any choosing herself. The store manager had already picked 10 outfits for her according to her measurements. This reminded Xiao Sisi of the past, when she went shopping in the city with her grandmother, and she would only get dirty looks. She had never enjoyed such star-studded service. However, she is just a worker, and Fu Qingye's status is none of her business. She took the first set of clothes into the fitting room and inadvertently glanced at the clothes tag. An improved cheongsam actually costs more than 50,000 yuan. She counted it again and again, and it really is a 5-digit number. After struggling for a long time, she dared to put the clothes on. She was afraid of ruining the clothes, so when she walked out of the fitting room, she felt uncomfortable, but she received astonished looks from everyone. In particular, Fu Qingye, like all boyfriends, was bored waiting for his girlfriend to try on clothes, so he looked at his phone. He glanced in the direction of Xiao Sisi, but her gaze held him captive. He never would have thought that she would look so stunning with just a little bit of makeup. Xiao Sisi had fair skin, a sweet appearance, and a shapely, slightly thin figure. However, where she should have developed her figure, she had developed it very impressively. This superbly tailored cheongsam made her impressive bust stand out. Fu Qingye's mind flashed back to the images from that night, and he swallowed inexplicably. He felt his body inexplicably become hot. In public, he actually had those thoughts about her, which had never happened before. It looks really good. Mrs. Fu looks so young, but her breasts are not small at all. This cheongsam is like made for you. Yes, as soon as you put it on, you immediately look like a young lady. It's so beautiful. It looks really good. Everyone was generous with their praise for Xiao Sisi. Xiao Sisi's gaze fell on the direction of Fu Qingye, however, and she ignored everyone's praise. She walked quickly up to Fu Qingye and leaned towards him. The proud part of her body jumped right into Fu Qingye's line of sight. He felt like his body's blood was burning rapidly, spreading to his limbs, and his nasal cavity felt hot and about to burst. Fu Qingye hurriedly raised his hand to cover his high nose, afraid that his nose would bleed. Since when had his self-control become so poor? At this time, however, he heard her panicked voice in his ear. A warm breath blew on his rosy ears. Mr. Fu, the clothes in this store are so expensive. This one I'm wearing costs over 50,000 yuan. I'll go in and change it in a bit, tell them I don't like it, and then you can go out first and I'll follow you out right away, so it won't be awkward. Xiao Sisi's voice was very, very quiet, afraid that someone would hear her. She had done this before when she went to the clothing mall with her classmates and tried on clothes, and then decided they were too expensive after looking at the price tag. Fu Qingye couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips. Unexpectedly, a 50,000 yuan dress had scared the little girl so much. No need to try it on, he said suddenly. Xiao Sisi's face visibly turned red as she straightened up. The service in this store was really enthusiastic. Although the dress was very expensive, she was still quite embarrassed that Fu Qingye had told her not to try it on because it was expensive. Didn't she tell him to wait until she changed before going out? However, being embarrassed was better than wasting money, so she dejectedly went to the fitting room to change back into her original clothes. As a result, Fu Qingye immediately said, "These clothes all have her size, right? Wrap them all up, and cut off the tags on her clothes so she can wear them directly." Okay, President Fu. The store manager went to the cashier's desk with a happy face to get the scissors. The staff members looked at Xiao Sisi with even more envy. Xiao Sisi was dumbfounded. Pack it all up? She had already told him that these clothes were very expensive. The cheongsam she was wearing cost more than 50,000 yuan, and the store manager had picked her 10 outfits in total, some of which were 2-piece sets or even 3-piece sets. At the average price of this store, the 10 outfits must be worth several 100,000 yuan? She was so scared that her legs were shaking. Xiao Sisi knew that Fu Qingye was rich, but as a poor girl, she could not imagine how rich he really was. Unfortunately, the store manager quickly cut the tags off the clothes, and she couldn't stop him in time. The other staff members also helped, and soon the clothes were all packed up. Fu Qingye used his black card to pay the bill. When Xiao Sisi saw that the bill showed 860,000, she felt like she was going to faint. 860,000 for a single piece of clothing? That's the price of a house that an ordinary person has to work hard for a lifetime to buy. And Fu Qingye casually swiped it out? And the clothes were bought for her? She stood there stupidly, her face showing no joy at all, but rather an expression of imminent tears. Fu Qingye had not brought his assistant with him today, so he had to carry the bag himself. "Let's go," he said to the stunned Xiao Sisi. When the two of them walked out of the clothing store, Xiao Sisi still could not calm her pounding heart. "Mr. Fu, 860,000, that's too expensive, right? Should we return it? What do you think?" Xiao Sisi felt so bad for the money he had spent. "Xiao Sisi, I hired you to pretend to be my girlfriend, not to be a maid. These clothes are the standard attire for my girlfriend. Remember, if anyone in the family dares to order you around in the future, call me immediately. Fu Qingye said sternly. He was still angry that she had been ordered to clean the toilet. For some reason, he couldn't bear to see others bully her. Xiao Sisi then asked, "What about the money for the clothes?" "They're just work clothes," he replied. Chapter 8, Envious of the future Mrs. Fu. "It won't be deducted from your salary," he added. Xiao Sisi's pale face obviously blushed a little. 860,000 yuan for work clothes? That's too extravagant. However, if it's the standard work uniform arranged by the boss, she has nothing to say. She has to admit that when she walks next to him wearing street clothes, she really doesn't look like his girlfriend. It's more like a little girl who has been abducted by an older man. But this thought only flashed through her mind for a moment. If he found out, he wouldn't like it when people said that he looked big. What was even more shocking was that after Fu Qingye, she was taken to buy bags, shoes, mobile phones, etc., all luxury goods. She watched him spend millions in one go without batting an eyelid. Although it wasn't her own money, Xiao Sisi, who had never seen the world, felt heartbroken. Why is the world so unfair? She is so poor that she can't even afford her grandmother's 100,000 yuan surgery fee, and she can only turn a blind eye to the elderly woman's pain, while someone else is spending money like water. When the two left the women's section, he had more than a dozen bags of different sizes in his hands. For a moment, Xiao Sisi became the envy of the entire mall. At that moment, a couple walked by. The woman glanced at Xiao Sisi and then at the pile of luxury shopping bags in Fu Qingye's hands, and couldn't help but complain to her husband, "Look at that man, how good he is to his wife, buying so many luxury items and even carrying them for her, spending money and effort. You won't even buy me the shoes I like that cost 500 yuan, what's the use of you?" Xiao Sisi couldn't help thinking, if this woman knew that she was only his fake girlfriend and already had such treatment, wouldn't she be even more envious? Suddenly, she was a little envious of the future Mrs. Fu. After all, he was so generous to a fake girlfriend. She couldn't help thinking, how happy would the woman be who could really enter his heart? Fu Qingye heard this and glanced at Xiao Sisi with a rather smug expression, as if to say, "Being my employee, the treatment is pretty good, right?" However, before he could wipe the smug look off his face, the man he had been complaining about returned, saying to his wife, "Are you blind? This man is so much older than the woman, how can he be her husband? It's obvious they're having an affair, so shouldn't he be nicer to his girlfriend?" Xiao Sisi watched as Fu Qingye's smug expression instantly crumbled, replaced by a chill that was even colder than the air conditioning in the mall. He glared at the man like a sharp knife, so scared that the man quickly pulled his wife away and ran. He didn't say a word the rest of the way home. After they got in the car, he couldn't help but ask, "Do I look old?" Xiao Sisi realized that he was still upset about what the man in the mall had said. In fact, Fu Qingye was not only ageless, but also exceptionally handsome. Xiao Sisi could assure him that she had never seen such a good-looking man before, and he only looked a little more mature standing next to her, a young girl just starting out in life. She could only say tactfully, "Maybe it's because you're wearing a dark suit today, so you look a little more mature." Fu Qingye glanced down. He did always wear suits and liked the color black. Hearing her explanation, he nodded quite satisfied. It seems that the clothes are big, not him. After returning home, Xiao Sisi went straight to her bedroom as usual. He stood in front of the door with his things and told her, "From now on, move to my room and sleep there." After saying this, he took the things he had bought for Xiao Sisi and entered his bedroom first. She was left standing there with a pale face. Fu Qingye bought so many things for his fake girlfriend, is there something else he wants her to do? Thinking about the other night, when he made her come so many times, she felt a chill in her heart. He needs to be so strong in that area, and going to sleep in his room is like a lamb going into the tiger's mouth, right? The more she thought about it, the more scared she became, and she simply didn't dare to follow him into the bedroom. Fu Qingye put his things away for the night, but Xiao Sisi still hadn't followed him into the bedroom. He walked back out of the bedroom and only then did he notice the young girl standing pale-faced in the doorway, lost in thought. When she saw him, she looked as if she had seen a wolf. Her beautiful eyes were filled with unspeakable fear. "What were you thinking?" he asked. Xiao Sisi came back to her senses only then. She looked up at him, her deep, alluring eyes full of unsaid words. Fu Qingye raised his eyebrows slightly, signaling her to speak up. Xiao Sisi then plucked up the courage to say, "Mr. Fu, although we haven't signed a contract, I don't think a pretend girlfriend has any other obligations, right? The more she thought about it, the more afraid she became. A man with more experience than her wouldn't sign a contract, so it couldn't be a trap, could it? It was precisely because the specific obligations of a pretend girlfriend were not clearly written that it was even more terrifying. Fu Qingye seemed to know what she was thinking. The little girl must be worried that he would sleep with her again. The two of them understood each other about what happened that night, but that didn't mean it didn't happen. These days, Fu Qingye also tried his best to pretend that it never happened, but the truth was the truth, and it was normal for the little girl to be worried. Are you overthinking it? If you didn't beg for help that night, would I sleep with you? He looked dignified, as if he was reluctant. He looked completely uninterested in her. Xiao Cici's face turned red, and after thinking about it, she agreed that it was true. That night, she had begged him to open the door and then to have sex with her. Now that he had offered her a job, he was her savior. In that case, she had been thinking too much like a petty person. With Fu Qingye's conditions, what kind of woman couldn't he sleep with? She then said, I'll go next door and pack up, then move in. Soon, Xiao Cici entered Fu Qingye's bedroom with a small bag of luggage. His bedroom was twice the size of her old one, and the entire room was a dull dove gray. Even the bed sheets were light gray. However, the bedroom was clean and tidy, with simple and high-end furnishings. Overall, it looked like a masterful ink painting. Even if it wasn't Xiao Cici's favorite style, it gave her a very comfortable feeling. I'm sure the fact that I fired the maid has reached Grandma's ears. Butler Du is one of Grandma's people, and everyone in this family is under Butler Du's management, so everyone in the family is Grandma's spy. Starting today, I will try my best to act like a qualified boyfriend, and you must also be aware of your status and stop doing maid's work, understand? Fu Qingye explained. Xiao Cici nodded. She would never again do any cleaning or anything else out of self-love. Auntie Zhu was going to report her, and that really scared her. But there was only one bed in the room, so how would they sleep? Xiao Cici nervously glanced at the bed. Fu Qingye followed her gaze, and a playful smile suddenly appeared at the corner of his lips. He slowly walked up to her, looked down at her and said, the bed is so big, isn't half enough for the both of us? Ha? 2 people sleeping in one bed? That's not good, is it? She was so worried that she was about to cry. Chapter 9, What's Wrong with Him? The events of that night were still lingering in her mind, and she hadn't been able to digest them at all. She felt so embarrassed about sleeping in the same bed with him. Suddenly, she felt that 30,000 yuan a month was not easy money to make. Fu Qingye didn't know why he was teasing her, but when he saw her face clouding over with worry, he regained his composure. Don't worry, I'm not interested in you. You sleep in the bed, I'll sleep on the sofa, he said seriously. Xiao Cici let out a sigh of relief. In order to avoid being found out, after dinner, Xiao Cici stayed in the bedroom and didn't go out. Fortunately, Fu Qingye, a workaholic, kept sitting at his desk facing the computer, so the two of them weren't as awkward face to face. As the night grew deeper, Xiao Cici felt sticky after shopping in the mall for a few hours today, so she carried her clothes into the bathroom. She took a shower and blow-dried her hair in the bathroom, and came out feeling refreshed. Fu Qingye, who was concentrating on his work, heard her return to the bedroom and looked up, his gaze fixed on the young girl. Xiao Cici was wearing the new pajamas she had just bought. These pajamas cost more than 5,000 yuan, and they were the cheapest item of clothing she had bought today. Before taking a shower, she had tried on many different outfits, but only these pajamas were barely worth wearing. The other clothes cost tens of thousands of yuan, and she didn't even want to touch them. What she didn't know was that her pajamas were very thin, especially when she stood under the lights, they were almost transparent. The little strawberry underwear she was wearing was clearly printed, and her figure was clearly defined. Her fair skin was flushed with a clear pink, and her whole body looked as delicate as a water lily. However, the person concerned was not aware of any of this at all. She just felt that expensive clothes were comfortable to wear, and that the top was so comfortable that it was like not wearing anything at all. Fu Qingye felt his nose getting a little hot, and his gaze fixed on her. The image of her crying and begging for mercy that night flashed through his mind, and suddenly, his whole body felt as if it was on fire, his blood boiling. For a moment, the foreign language on the computer screen became a bunch of unintelligible symbols, and he suddenly felt an urge to pin her to the bed. Until Xiao Cici felt the scorching gaze not far away, and when she looked up and met his eyes, Fu Qingye looked like he had been scalded, his gaze flickering as he pretended to be thinking about something. Xiao Cici looked at him intently, wondering if it was her illusion to have just caught the man's lecherous gaze. That's right, he had clearly said before that he wasn't interested in her, so how could he possibly be interested in her? Maybe it was just her own psychology. After all, the two of them weren't in a pure relationship, and she had just finished taking a shower and was wearing pajamas. It was only natural that she felt uncomfortable staying in his bedroom. Xiao Sisi didn't think about it further, but she didn't dare to keep hanging around in front of him either. After a moment of hesitation, she said to Fu Qingye, "Mr. Fu, I'll go to bed then. If you can't sleep on the sofa, I'm fine sleeping on the sofa." After all, the beds in her hometown were not as big as his sofa. "You sleep on the bed, I won't go to sleep so soon." Fu Qingye coughed twice to fake a cough and try to look like a gentleman. Xiao Sisi then lifted the quilt and hid in the warm bed. Fu Qingye, on the other hand, was more distracted than ever and had no desire to work. He really wanted that woman. He could only cool down his body by drinking water non-stop. It was already past 10 at night, and a ringing sound broke the silence in the room. It was Fu Granny who answered the door. Fu Qingye quickly picked up the video call. On the other end of the screen, Fu Granny frowned and asked, "Qingye, do you have a fever? Your face is so red. Where is CC?" Fu Qingye's heart skipped a beat. Was it that obvious? Could Granny detect the heat of his passion even through the screen? He knew that Granny would make surprise inspections, but he never expected her to call him at this hour of the night for this reason. He took the phone and walked over to the big bed. "I didn't finish work, so I asked Shishi to lie down and wait for me," Fu Qingye said, and naturally lay down next to Xiao Shishi and reached out to hug her close. Xiao Shishi wasn't asleep. She was wearing pajamas, and her face turned red as she was held in his arms. She waved at her grandmother on the video call, her smile sweet. "Grandma, why aren't you asleep so late?" she asked politely. "Heh, Grandma is getting ready to go to bed. I thought you young people wouldn't be asleep so early, so I made a video to check on you." Grandma Fu saw Xiao Sisi lying on Fu Qingye's night bed, and the young couple looked extremely matched, which made her smile in satisfaction. The unspoken meaning was to check up on them. In order to play the role of a good girlfriend and allay her grandmother's concerns, Xiao Sisi leaned over and gently hugged Fu Qingye's waist, and her legs naturally rested on his lap. It was just that. Fu Qingye, whose blood was already boiling, stiffened. Grandma Fu saw with her own eyes that Fu Qingye's expression suddenly became strange. "Sisi, is Qingye not feeling well tonight?" His face looked strange. "Did it?" Xiao Sisi turned her head and looked at Fu Qingye and muttered. "I don't know if he's not feeling well, but it feels like he's quite hot." "Grandma, we're going to sleep now, good night." Fu Qingye hung up the phone directly, and the room was quiet. He felt uncomfortable as if he couldn't sweat, and his lower abdomen felt tight. "Xiao Sisi, can you move your legs?" His face was calm and forbearing. Xiao Sisi lifted the quilt and suddenly let out a cry. Only then did she realize that she had put her legs in the wrong place. As if they had been scalded, the two of them hurriedly pulled away from each other. Fu Qingye got up abruptly, his breathing rapid as he said, "You go to sleep first, I'll go take a shower." He quickly entered the bathroom, leaving Xiao Sisi, blushing, hiding under the covers. Fu Qingye turned on the cold water and showered, dousing his head with cold water for half an hour before he could barely wash away the heat. What was wrong with him? On the other side, after hanging up the phone, Grandma Fu was overjoyed. She is a woman of the world, and her little grandson's flushed face and his hasty hanging up of the phone told her exactly what he wanted. She had already had someone look up Xiao Sisi's basic information, and was worried that she was just an actress hired by Fu Qingye. She never imagined that she would find out that Xiao Sisi had actually shared a room with Fu Qingye and that the two of them had slept in the hotel together all night. Now that she had found out from the video that they had indeed slept together that night, she was even happier. The only thing that worried Grandma Fu was Fu Qingye's physical condition. He had been injured after being kidnapped as a child, so even if he was able to perform in that area, she didn't know if he could conceive a child. She couldn't worry about that right now. He needed a woman first. Early that morning, Xiao Sisi's phone beeped, and she received a video from her cousin Xiao Na. Before she could check what video Xiao Na had sent, her aunt Gui Zuihong's phone rang. "Xiao Sisi, you've got some nerve, haven't you? Where have you been for so many days? Have you found a job yet?" Gui Zuihong asked, firing questions at her. A few days ago, after she had had a row with Xiao Sisi and seen her turn away, Gui Zuihong had not stopped her because she thought that it was hard to find work outside and the young girl had no money, so she would definitely come back in 2 days. By then, she might even be begging her to go selling with Auntie Lou. Unexpectedly, she has been gone for almost a week, and not only has she not returned, she hasn't even called once. Gui Hong is getting a little anxious. She doesn't want to have raised Xiao Sisi for so many years for nothing, and she must get some benefit out of her. I've already found a job. The boss provides food and accommodation. From now on, I won't eat a single bite from your family again, so don't call me unless it's an emergency. Xiao Sisi said flatly. What? You found a job? You're still young, don't waste your time on assembly line work. Have you seen the videos Nana posts? The tofu business isn't doing well at home, and your uncle and I are having a hard time paying the mortgage. When school starts, you have to send Nana's tuition back to us. She can't just stop going to school like you did at such a young age. Xiao Sisi's eyes reddened with grievance when she heard this. Unfortunately, they were not her real parents, and it was only natural for her aunt and uncle to love their cousin more. They seemed to have forgotten that she was the same age as Xiao Na. Auntie, Xiao Na is your daughter, not mine. Please find the money for her tuition yourself. I just started working and can't save up for her tuition. As for Grandma's leg, I will save up to pay for her surgery, but it won't be so soon. What do you mean Xiao Na is not your daughter? For so many years, you have lived in our home and eaten at our table. You have been raised by us, and you have helped our family a little bit. What's wrong with that? And, by the time you save up the money for the operation on the assembly line, your grandmother's leg will be in pain and broken. Enough talk, you come back right away. Aunt Lou is waiting for you to go to the city to find her. Gui Hong is actually still thinking of letting her go sell things. Xiao Sisi hung up the phone directly, but when she opened WeChat and saw the video of her grandmother's white hair sent by Xiao Na, she was so distressed that she started to twitch. Grandma is aging so quickly, and her ankles seem to be out of alignment, with the bones poking out. The surgery can't wait any longer. Fu Qingye, who was next to her, had just finished tying his tie and was getting ready to go out to work when he saw Xiao Sisi come in from the balcony with red eyes after finishing the phone call. She seemed to have lost her soul and was sitting on the bed in a daze. Who bullied you again? He asked with a devilish twist. Chapter 10, You're pretending to be my girlfriend, not being imprisoned by me. Fu Qingye didn't know why, but he actually cared about the little girl's emotions. Xiao Sisi came back to her senses and shook her head quickly, saying, No one is bullying me. Why are you crying? Her eyes were wet, and he couldn't help but reach out to wipe them away. It's really nothing, it's just something at home, Xiao Sisi replied. Fu Qingye straightened his collar and then realized that she was just one of his employees, and as the boss, he had no right to interfere in her life. The two went downstairs together to eat. Recently, in order to act like a loving couple, Fu Qingye had been leaving work as early as possible, and every day he would have dinner with Xiao Sisi. In the past, when he lived alone, he always ate alone. He didn't know that it was actually not bad to have someone to eat with. Moreover, Xiao Sisi has a particularly good appetite. The young girl grew up in someone else's home and, having just entered society, has not had the chance to eat many good things. At first, she was reluctant to eat, but when Fu Qingye told her that if she didn't eat, it would be thrown away later, she began to eat heartily. For Xiao Sisi, the most anticipated event of the day after she arrived at the Fu family's home was eating. The meals prepared by the Fu family's cook were full of variety and really delicious. But today, as the two sat facing each other, Xiao Sisi was distracted and didn't seem to have much of an appetite. Her mind was full of her grandmother's foot, and even the imported grapes tasted less sweet when she put them in her mouth. She did some mental calculations. Although Fu Qingye's salary was high, she would still have to work for 3 months to save up for the surgery. Her grandmother's foot was so badly misaligned that she couldn't walk at all. Pushing off the surgery for one more day would mean one more day of pain for her. And back home, her uncles and aunts would still want her to help run the tofu stall, so she really couldn't delay any longer. In fact, the job of pretending to be Fu Qingye's girlfriend is very relaxing. She can find another job, which will earn her money faster. She just doesn't know if Fu Qingye will mind. Mr. Fu, when you're not at home, I should be able to go out, right? Xiao Sisi looked up at Fu Qingye, who was sitting across from her. Of course. So I can do whatever I want? Xiao Sisi asked again. You're pretending to be my girlfriend, not being imprisoned. He finished the orange juice in his glass and stood up. Xiao Sisi was overjoyed at Fu Qingye's words. In the corner of his eye, he saw the sorrow on Xiao Sisi's face dissipate, and he wondered what the little girl wanted. Although he was puzzled, he still suppressed his desire for control and prepared to go out to work. At this time, Butler Du walked into the hall and then secretly spied on them from outside, presumably preparing to report to Grandma Fu. His motives were obvious from the look in his eyes and the way he moved. Fu Qingye took his jacket, turned a corner, went around to Xiao Sisi, leaned down and placed a kiss on her forehead. "Baby, I'm going to work, see you tonight." His voice was unusually gentle. Xiao Sisi also noticed Butler Du in the lobby. She knew that Fu Qingye was acting for Butler Du, but his gentle kiss, like a light feather brushing against her skin, even soothed her restless heart. She watched him walk away in a daze, and it was a while before she came back to her senses. Butler Du snapped a photo of their kiss on the forehead and quickly sent it to Grandma Fu. Grandma Fu was naturally overjoyed and couldn't stop smiling. She kept looking at the photo, and as her mood improved, so did her sleep, and as her sleep improved, so did her health. That day, Xiao Sisi started looking for work on the mobile app. Most jobs only paid a few thousand yuan a month, and some even required a degree. After looking around, she found a bar called Gardenia Night that was hiring waitresses. All they had to do was serve the tables and help open bottles of wine. The more wine they opened for the guests, the higher the commission. The salary was between 10,000 and 50,000 yuan a month. Although the incident a few days ago had left a bad taste in her mouth, she had been taken to the dinner party that time because she trusted Auntie Lu from the same village, and this time she was applying to be a waitress, so she could quit at any time if she didn't feel right about it. Thinking about this, Xiao Sisi set off to apply for the job that day. Bars like to hire young and pretty girls, and they don't even ask for qualifications, they hire them on the spot. Young lady, work hard. As long as the girls here are willing to work, they can easily earn 30,000 to 50,000 yuan a month just serving drinks, the supervisor told her. Xiao Sisi nodded excitedly. That night, she put on the uniform of the bar. A white shirt, a black wrap skirt, black stockings, and black high heels underneath a white collar look with a lower neckline and a shorter skirt than a formal outfit. It was simply irresistible. Xiao Sisi felt very uncomfortable, but she was willing to take the risk in order to make money. Before the bar opened, the head waitress went over the work details with Xiao Sisi, and she, with her excellent memory, quickly memorized them. It was late at night, and like the other waitresses, Xiao Sisi was carrying trays as she shuttled through the lights and revelry. Many regulars had noticed the new waitress, so many lecherous glances fell on her, even if they didn't approach her, which made her feel uncomfortable. She didn't dare to look at the gazes of the people around her, so naturally she didn't notice that among the guests at table 11 was her boss, Fu Qingye. Similarly, Fu Qingye was focused on watching the performance on stage and would never pay attention to the waitresses, so he didn't notice Xiao Sisi was there either. His friend Pei Junxiao, who was sitting in a carefree manner, with a glass in one hand, was scanning the scene for prey. He looked in the direction of Xiao Sisi and said, "That new waitress looks pretty, with a pure face and a devilish body. Hey, I'll ask her to come over and open a bottle of wine to keep us company." He was the most flirtatious of Fu Qingye's friends, and wanted to chat up any beautiful woman he saw. Pei Junxiao said, beckoning to Xiao Sisi. "Waitress, come over and open a bottle of wine." For Xiao Sisi, there was nothing that made her happier than hearing a customer ask for a bottle to be opened. She quickly took the corkscrew and walked over. Meanwhile, Fu Qingye, whose eyes were on the stage, glanced in her direction out of the corner of his eye. When he discovered that the beautiful waitress his friend had mentioned was actually Xiao Sisi, his gaze sharpened and his face fell. When Xiao Sisi approached, she also saw Fu Qingye. She was dumbfounded. She never expected to run into Fu Qingye on the first day of her part-time job. When their eyes met, Xiao Sisi hesitated for a moment, but then she thought to herself, "I'm at work, and I'm opening wine for a customer, which is very tempting. If the customer orders an expensive bottle of wine, the commission is high." She could only grit her teeth and walk towards Fu Qingye. "Open them all." Pei Junxiao pointed at the wine on the table. Xiao Sisi glanced at the expensive wine on the table and secretly calculated that if she opened all of it, she would make 1,000 or 2 yuan tonight. Excited, she ignored Fu Qingye's cold gaze and happily picked up the bottle. However, she secretly thought to herself, "I don't have to pretend to be his girlfriend if I'm not at the Fu's house, do I?" Chapter 11 Master Chang, you're really acting strange today. With so many of his friends there, if she introduced herself as his girlfriend, he probably wouldn't be happy, and neither would his friends. Besides, his main goal was to please his grandmother, so he shouldn't need a fake girlfriend in front of his friends, right? She had talked to him on the phone in the morning, and he had promised that she could do whatever she wanted normally, so she didn't think he would be angry because she was working. As she was opening the wine, Pei Junqiao struck up a conversation. Little girl, what's your name? I haven't seen you before, are you new here? Xiao Sisi opened the bottle cap and looked up at Fu Qingye with a somewhat pleading expression, as if to say, Mr. Fu, I don't need to lie in front of your friends, do I? Pei Junqiao followed her gaze and caught her actually staring at Fu Qingye in a daze. He laughed as usual and said, Little girl, you have bad taste. Master Chang is handsome, but he's not interested in women. Pei Junqiao almost said that Fu Qingye was not good. Master Chang is Fu Qingye's nickname, and his good friends call him that. Some business partners also treat Master Chang as a respectful title. On ordinary days, when they hang out together, the girls all stare at Fu Qingye like Xiao Sisi, but unfortunately, Fu Qingye is the only one among them who is not interested in women, and simply cannot satisfy the needs of the beautiful women. Xiao Sisi then withdrew her gaze and thought to herself, where is Fu Qingye not interested in women? They don't know that he is fierce, having sex 7 times in one night. This is my first day at work. Xiao Sisi answered uneasily, but did not say her name. How old are you? You look so young, are you even 18? Pei Junqiao asked again. How am I young? You look like a full-grown adult, and you're asking such a stupid question. Are you blind? Fu Qingye suddenly interrupted and scolded. He had always hated it when people called Xiao Sisi young, because it made him look older. After all, he had eaten Xiao Sisi, and even his grandmother said he was an old cow eating young grass. As a result, Pei Junqiao actually said that Xiao Sisi looked like an underage? Wow! Master Chang, why did you suddenly scold me? Tell me, did I say anything wrong? Doesn't this little girl look like she's 16 or 17? Go home and look in the mirror yourself, you could practically be someone's uncle, I'm telling you. Pei Junqiao said without mercy. Fu Qingye was choked by a sip of wine, and he covered his thin lips with a handkerchief to prevent it from spilling. Enduring the anger that wanted to give Pei Junqiao a hammer, he replied, Say one more word, and I'll make you go blind, believe it or not? Pei Junqiao then shut his mouth tightly, and then couldn't help but say suspiciously, Master Chang, you are really abnormal today. Not only Pei Junqiao, but also the other 2 friends felt that he was abnormal. Not only did he rarely come out for drinks, but even when he did, he didn't say much except to watch the show and have a few drinks. Pei Junqiao usually ignored him when he hit on girls, but today he actually made the girl dance because of him? It even felt a little angry. It was really unbelievable. Fu Qingye probably also realized his own abnormality. He picked up his glass again, looked in the direction of the stage while drinking, pretended not to care about Xiao Sisi working at a nightclub, but in fact, his peripheral vision kept wandering over to her. Only then did he realize why the little girl suddenly asked him in the morning if she could go out, as if she could do whatever she wanted. If he had known that she was going to work in a nightclub, he would have said no. Now in front of so many people, he didn't want to say anything to Xiao Sisi. Besides, he had spoken too quickly in the morning, and there was no reason for him to withdraw. After all, this was Xiao Sisi's personal choice. During this time, Pei Junqiao's gaze kept wandering over Xiao Sisi's fair, white face, and the more he looked, the more he liked her. Little girl, do you get a cut of the wine sales? How much is the commission for opening a bottle? Pei Junqiao asked. It's my first day here, so I'm not really sure, Xiao Sisi replied. In fact, she knew that for a bottle of wine like the one on the table, the commission was at least 100-200 yuan. She was so excited when she opened the bottle. How about this, a kiss for your brother, and then 10 more bottles if you let your brother open them. Or, if you sit on my lap and sing a song for your brother, I'll open 20 bottles and give you a bonus on top of that. Pei Junqiao pointed at his own face and patted his thigh. The friends at the table all shook their heads and laughed, used to Pei Junqiao's irreverent appearance. Only Fu Qingye, who was staring at the stage pretending to look at it, suddenly turned his head and his sinister nighthawk-like gaze fell on Pei Junqiao's face. Xiao Sisi was still calculating how much commission he could get from the 20 bottles of wine, and had no time to react to what Pei Junqiao had said. Fu Qingye eagerly said, Pei Junqiao, you can usually do whatever you like, but don't do this kind of thing in front of me. Fu Qingye's expressionless face was very intimidating, and his friends were silent. Pei Junqiao wondered, is Fu Qingye in a bad mood today? Why is he like a woman having her period, with waves of anger? It really scared him. Little girl, there's no need to open any more wine. You go back to what you were doing. Among Pei Junqiao and the others, Fu Qingye is the oldest and has the most impressive background. They usually listen to him. Fu Qingye was so obviously angry that Pei Junxiao didn't dare flirt with the little girl in front of him. Xiao Sisi felt a pang of heartache. Although only a few bottles of wine had been opened, she felt quite stressed about working part-time in front of her employer. She felt like she had been pardoned when she was told to go away, so she turned around and got back to work. The business at Garden Night Bar was very good, and waiters were called from time to time. In the corner of his eye, Fu Qingye kept an eye on the young girl in the crowd, who was busy wearing black silk. Naturally, he also noticed that many men in the bar were looking at her with lecherous eyes. He felt inexplicably upset, so he kept pouring wine into his mouth. Everyone at the table noticed that Fu Qingye seemed to be in a bad mood today. He wasn't a heavy drinker, usually just a couple of drinks, but tonight he kept pouring wine into his mouth. Everyone was so embarrassed that they exchanged glances with each other, but no one dared to ask him why. Xiao Sisi, on the other hand, quickly got down to work after leaving table 11. She had no idea that a group of old men were sitting at table 8 not far away. One of them glanced at Xiao Sisi twice and said to his companions, "Do you see that new girl? Doesn't she look like the one who ran away the other night?" The disgusting stares of the men all fell in the same direction as Xiao Sisi's. These old men were the bosses introduced by Auntie Lu that night. Auntie Lu was responsible for drugging and sending Xiao Sisi to the dinner party. They had already paid the agency fee, but they were unable to eat the little girl, and they were furious. Auntie Lu still refused to refund the money, which made them feel quite uncomfortable. Unexpectedly, they met Xiao Sisi again so soon. After confirming that it was Xiao Sisi, the old men looked at each other and both revealed disgusting expressions on their old faces. "Hey, little girl, come over here and open a bottle of wine." One of the old men with beer bellies waved at Xiao Sisi. Chapter 12 Master Chang, you don't like this, do you? The mood lighting in the bar was on, making it impossible to see the faces of the guests. Moreover, it was Xiao Sisi's first day at work, and she was so busy that when she heard someone call her, she walked over without recognizing the old men. It wasn't until she got closer that she recognized them, and she turned pale with shock. She took 2 steps back, and her first reaction was to run, but it was already too late. The old man with the beer belly got up and grabbed Xiao Sisi. "Little girl, your uncles have been looking for you for a long time. We never thought we'd run into you here again. He. The man's mouth smelled of alcohol and cigarettes as he spoke. She felt so sick she was about to vomit. Immediately afterwards, the other 4 men stood up, and while they verbally molested her, they surrounded Xiao Sisi with their beer bellies and age spots. The stench was overpowering, and Xiao Sisi was terrified. "Let go of me, there are so many people here, you guys, don't do anything," Xiao Sisi yelled. The 5 men burst out laughing at the same time. "Little sister, this is the territory of uncles, who dares to stop us from playing with a little waitress?" The bald man said with a disgusting smile. As soon as he finished speaking, several men reached out, some tugging at Xiao Sisi's hair, while others grabbed her clothes and dragged her directly towards the bar's private room. "Let go of me! Help, help!" Xiao Sisi raised her hands above her head and clawed at her hair to relieve the pain of her scalp being pulled. She shouted for help. In an instant, she looked as thin as a little rag doll, as if she would be torn to pieces at any moment. Unfortunately, as the old men had said, it was normal for things like this to happen at nightclubs. What's more, they were big bosses and regulars here, notorious bad guys, and there were a bunch of people watching in the bar, but no one came out to intervene. At table 11, Pei Junxiao saw the waitress he had just tried to chat up being dragged away by 5 old bad guys. He frowned and said, "The girl is in trouble. Those 5 old perverts have actually set their sights on her." He had thought that his friends, who never bothered with other people's business, would not care about this matter, and it seemed that only he had noticed Xiao Sisi at the scene. He would like to rescue the beauty, but he also did not want to get himself into trouble. Unexpectedly, Fu Qingye, who had been silent, suddenly got up and sprinted towards Xiao Sisi. Pei Junxiao and the others were startled awake by the noise. They all stood up at the same time, unable to believe that Fu Qingye, who had the coldest personality among them, would actually care about such trivial matters. Moreover, it was that little girl again. Could it be that he had just lost control frequently because of that little girl? No way. How could he lose control because of a woman? Xiao Sisi had just been dragged a distance of 2 or 3 meters, and all she could hear was the music and the man's furious voice. "Stop!" Hearing Fu Qingye's voice, Xiao Sisi cried with excitement. It was Fu Qingye again, he was practically an angel. The older men thought they had heard wrong. They were all well-known figures in the capital city, each with their own business, and no one would dare offend them, not to mention that this was a bar owned by their friend. Which blind thing? The man with the beer belly cursed halfway, and when he turned his head and saw that the person who told them to stop was Fu Qingye, he widened his eyes in shock. Master Chang? He couldn't quite believe that Fu Qingye would get involved in such trivial matters. The other four old men all looked at Fu Qingye when they heard the sound, but they still couldn't bear to let go of the delicious food in their hands. None of them showed any intention of letting go of Xiao Cici's hem or hair. Let her go. Fu Qingye ordered. Master Chang, when did you start meddling in other people's business? This girl was sold to Shu a few days ago, and her aunt received the money. We can't stop having fun, the man with the beer belly said to Fu Qingye. He thought that if he explained it clearly to Fu Qingye, he would stop meddling in other people's business. However, Fu Qingye's expression was cold and stern, and once again he opened his thin lips and said, I told you to let go, can't you hear me? Master Chang, I heard that you don't like women. Could it be that you like this one? The man with the beer belly finished suspiciously, and was the first to let go of his hand. Then he signaled for the other men to let go as well. In the capital, as long as you're not stupid, who would dare to go against Fu Qingye? I'm afraid it's not that you don't want to mess around, is it? After Xiao Cici was set free, she disheveledly tidied her hair. Her shoulders were hunched and she was already in tears. She was really scared. Why was it so hard to make some money? The man with the beer belly took the opportunity to ingratiate himself with Fu Qingye and said, Master Chang, there are a lot of country girls like this one. If you like, I'll have the madams I know buy you a dozen or 20 of them, and I guarantee that each one is still a virgin. You can have one a night, no repeats. When the man with the beer belly heard this, he thought he would win Fu Qingye's favor, but unexpectedly, he suddenly frowned and grabbed him by the collar. The next second, he grabbed the bottle of wine on the stranger's table and knocked it against the man with the beer belly's head again and again. Blood from the man with the beer belly's head ran down his forehead. Several old men were scared and pale. No one expected that Fu Qingye, the high and mighty group boss, would get involved in such trivial matters. For the sake of a girl from the countryside, he actually hit someone, and he hit someone who also had a face in the capital. The man with the beer belly howled loudly. Master Chang, spare my life, spare my life. Unfortunately, it was useless. Fu Qingye went crazy, smashed the bottle, and then punched and kicked him. Fu Qingye came out and beat people up. No one dared to stop him. The other four old guys couldn't clear themselves of the matter fast enough, so naturally they couldn't help out either. The bar was in chaos, with screams all around. Pei Junqiao and the others, who had run over from a distance, were stunned. They just felt incredible. Fu Qingye had been out with them before, and they hadn't never encountered such a thing. They had never seen him take a single glance at a lively scene. But today, he actually beat someone up over a waitress? Master Fu, stop hitting him. Ouch. 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 When I was young, I worked with your father. I'm at least your uncle. When you were little, I even held you. How can you hit me? The man with the beer belly used his position as an elder to bully the others. He was in so much pain that his voice broke when he spoke. Old man, you know how old you are, right? You're a disgrace to your age. He gritted his teeth and hit harder. Pei Junqiao and the others were worried that things would get out of hand, so they surrounded Fu Qingye and pulled him away. Get out of my sight, you old farts! Fu Qingye shouted angrily. Those 5 old men had been publicly lectured for the first time, but since it was Fu Qingye, they didn't dare say a word and left the bar in disgrace. But before they left, they couldn't help but glance at Xiao Cici one more time, their gazes hiding their unwillingness. They were big shots in Beijing, but they actually got beaten up by a country bumpkin, and they felt humiliated. Xiao Cici was still shaken for a long time, and she looked at Fu Qingye with gratitude in her eyes. If it wasn't for him, she really wouldn't have been able to escape tonight. Get out of this kind of place right now. This is not a place for you. Don't ever come to a nightclub to work again. Fu Qingye broke free from his friend's restraints and said to Xiao Cici in a cold voice. Chapter 13, Losing Control Over Her. Pei Junqiao and the others looked at each other, exchanging glances and thinking to themselves, Fu Qingye saving the beauty is definitely a first. Xiao Cici was terrified herself. Although she desperately needed the money, she was really scared and no longer dared to stay in the bar. Although the 5 old men were driven away by Fu Qingye, this kind of place is full of all kinds of people, and there is no telling if 10 more old men will come, and by then Fu Qingye may not necessarily be there. She nodded with red eyes and ran to the backstage of the bar to change her clothes. Master Chang, what's wrong with you today? You're in a bad mood? I've never seen you take care of this kind of thing before. Pei Junxiao asked curiously. The others also looked at him with confusion on their faces. However, they still didn't think that Pei Junxiao was only helping because he was interested in Xiao Sisi. They were the people who had been closest to Fu Qingye, and they knew that he had been kidnapped as a child. They even knew the reason why he didn't get close to women. Usually, no one dared to tease Fu Qingye about finding a woman. After all, having problems in that area was a pain for all men. As good friends, who would make fun of such things? Fu Qingye straightened his shirt and didn't reply. He went straight back to table 11, and during that time, his peripheral vision kept following the delicate figure until she entered the backstage of the bar. He sat back down in his original spot, picked up a glass of wine, and gulped it down. Then he poured another glass and continued drinking. Since Fu Qingye did not explain, Pei Junxiao and the others stopped asking questions. Xiao Sisi went to the staff lounge. The supervisor still persuaded her to hang in there a little longer, but she was really scared, and even more afraid of Fu Qingye's displeasure, so she refused to work no matter what. She was afraid that if she didn't do a good job, Fu Qingye would be angry, and she would lose her main job. After all, the job of pretending to be a girlfriend is, by comparison, far too leisurely, not dangerous, and she is pampered. But when she thinks about the money for her grandmother's surgery, she has to bow to reality and thinks that she'd better find a safer part-time job. After changing into her work clothes, which are a designer dress that Fu Qingye bought for her at the mall, she walks through the bar's public area again. She looks like a proud and innocent princess, and the men's eyes are drawn to her. From afar, Fu Qingye kept an eye on the direction of Xiao Sisi. When he saw her leave and so many men staring at her, a sense of inexplicable displeasure welled up in his heart. Clearly, she was just his fake girlfriend. The two of them had only a fleeting relationship that night. What was he upset about? Fu Qingye put down his glass and said to a few friends, "I'm going home first." After he said that, he strode towards the bar door. What's wrong with Master Cheng tonight? Is it because he hasn't touched a woman for so many years that his yin and yang are out of balance? Pei Junxiao muttered. When you reach a certain age, you should have a woman. I guess the fire is building up in his chest and he can't let it out, so he's sulking all day. Don't let him hear you, or we'll all get a beating. Everyone looked at the tall figure of Fu Qingye as he left, their gazes full of sympathy. It was really sad that such a handsome, charming, wealthy man had a secret illness. When Xiao Sisi reached the entrance to the bar, the loud music inside faded away. As she walked towards the subway station, a horrible wailing sound came from an alley not far away. Xiao Sisi shuddered, not wanting to get involved, so she quickened her pace. After a few steps, she felt that the wailing sound was familiar, so she turned around and unexpectedly discovered that a group of well-dressed men were besieging the 5 old men who had molested her in the bar just now. This group of attackers were obviously highly trained thugs, beating the 5 old men to a pulp. Old men, don't ever molest young girls again, or else, you'll be turned into eunuchs. I won't dare to do it again, please spare our lives. In the darkness of the night, Xiao Sisi's heart pounded at the sound of such screams. She wondered if the 5 old men had offended someone again. No one would dare to stand up for her, would they? Whatever the reason, a girl who had just experienced something like that was really scared to be alone on the street and see a fight. She was so scared that she could hardly walk. She was afraid that the group of people fighting would drag her into the alley with them. It was at this moment that she was tapped on the shoulder, and she nearly jumped out of fright. She tilted her head, and what fell into her line of sight was the cold and handsome face of Fu Qingye. When she realized it was Fu Qingye, Xiao Sisi let out a sigh of relief, and her pounding heart eased a little. Mr. Fu, why are you out here too? Xiao Sisi asked. Under the streetlight, Fu Qingye's pale skin was flushed with red, his eyes unfocused. He must have drunk quite a bit in there. Let's go home together, he said. Fu Qingye walked directly towards the parking lot, and Xiao Sisi, who had just been startled, felt as if she had grabbed a lifeline. She hurriedly chased after him. Fu Qingye had become the only sense of security she had in this strange city. Ran Chao drove the two of them to Yujing Villa. Fu Qingye, who was not used to drinking, walked unsteadily when he got out of the car. He stumbled a couple of times before he managed to hold onto the lamppost. How much had he drunk? Or was it that he simply couldn't drink? Xiao Sisi knew that once they arrived at the house, she would have to resume her role as his girlfriend. If she walked into the hall alone without supporting him, she was sure that the news would reach Grandma Fu's ears again. She quickly went up to him, took his arm, and said in a low voice, "Mr. Fu, let me help you back to your room." With her support, the two entered the hall. Butler Du came over as he saw this. How did the young master get so drunk? This was the first time Butler Du had seen Fu Qingye drunk. He was a very strict person who never drank too much outside because he was not good at drinking. He had to stay sober at all times and never allowed himself to lose control in front of others. The whole family looked shocked at Fu Qingye's unsteady gait. Shenya was having dinner with a friend when he got drunk out of joy, Xiao Sisi explained with a blush. Then she reached around Fu Qingye's waist and walked upstairs. Butler Du took a picture of the scene behind them and sent it to Grandma Fu immediately. "Grandma, the young master took his girlfriend out for dinner and got drunk out of joy." On Grandma Fu's end, she couldn't stop smiling when she saw the message. Men are more likely to get things done when they've had too much to drink, so don't bother, don't even think about sending him any hangover soup, Grandma Fu instructed. After returning to the bedroom, Xiao Sisi locked the door and put Fu Qingye on the sofa where he usually slept. After he had lain down, she was about to stand up straight, but unexpectedly, he suddenly reached out and wrapped his arms around her waist, forcing her whole body to press against him. Her face quickly turned red, and she gazed at the handsome face below her, which was flushed. The next second, he rolled over, completely dominating the petite, and then lowered his head and kissed the little girl's lips fiercely. Chapter 14 Mr. Fu, please respect yourself. His kiss was like a sudden storm. Xiao Sisi felt like a little flower in the wilderness, completely unable to defend against this sudden disaster. She stared with wide, red eyes, unable to believe what she was seeing. Fu Qingye had closed his eyes and was kissing her fiercely. What she wanted to say was blocked by him, and it turned into a sound of mm. Weak and helpless, her gaze went from fear to despair. Perhaps it was because he sensed the little person's body beginning to tremble that Fu Qingye finally opened his eyes and locked eyes with her wet, dark eyes, so innocent and so scared. Only then did he finally slowly release her lips, although his thin lips were still slightly pressed against hers. When he spoke, his lips exuded the crisp, intoxicating scent of wine. She felt as if she had drunk wine herself, and the wine taste was all in her mouth and teeth, transmitted to her by him. "How much can you earn working at a nightclub in one night?" His voice was cold and carried a hint of inexplicable anger. Xiao Sisi could clearly feel the low pressure in the air around her. She tried to get up, but he locked her in a strong grip and wouldn't allow her to move at all. "I don't know how much I can earn in one night, but the supervisor said that if I do a good job, I can earn more than 10,000 yuan a month, and up to 50,000 yuan at the most." Xiao Sisi was still trembling, but she explained to him seriously. She didn't know what Fu Qingye meant. Why did he kiss her? And why was he holding her so tightly? Was he drunk? Together with the breath he exhaled, it was extremely aggressive, typical of a man. She felt as if she had become a delicious morsel on his lips, ready to be devoured at any moment. "Don't go out and work part-time, do it with me once and I'll pay you 50,000. He gazed into her watery eyes and imperiously made his request. His breathing was rapid. Xiao Sisi thought she had heard it wrong. Although the two had already had a relationship, she had always regarded Fu Qingye as a lifesaver. Tonight, he had saved her life again, and his position in her heart had become even more elevated. Unexpectedly, Fu Qingye would actually make such a request to her, and the meaning of 50,000 at a time was for her to sell herself to him? How could she not understand such an obvious insult? Xiao Sisi was short of money, but if she were someone who would do anything for money, she would have already agreed to go out with Aunt Lu and sell herself. "Mr. Fu, please respect yourself. I'm only going out to work part-time, and I asked your opinion in the morning. You said I could do whatever I want. If you're angry about this, please just say so. Please don't insult people in this way." Although Xiao Sisi was scared, she still plucked up the courage to speak her mind. "You go to work in a place like that, what's the difference from going out to sell yourself? When you walk around in a crowd in a short skirt, a bunch of men stare at you, and you don't notice?" Fu Qingye asked sternly. Xiao Sisi's face turned slightly pale. Of course she knew what Fu Qingye was talking about, but what could she do? She sniffed. "I won't work in a nightclub anymore in the future, and I'll find another part-time job tomorrow." Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Fu. She was full of humiliation. At this moment, she felt that Fu Qingye, who wanted to take advantage of her, was no different from the men in the nightclub. But in order to keep this job, she still had to treat him with utmost respect. She pushed the man on her body away with all her strength, but he restrained her hands and asked, "Little girl, do you really need money that badly? Is the 30,000 yuan salary I'm offering you a month not enough for you to spend?" He had done some research and found that interns usually earn 2,000 to 3,000 yuan a month, so for someone with Xiao Cici's low level of education, 30,000 yuan a month was like money falling from the sky. How could she still be dissatisfied? Xiao Cici's face turned pale and then red, and she swallowed back her tears. Mr. Fu was born with a silver spoon, so of course he didn't know the hardships of the world. 30,000 yuan was a lot of money, but ordinary people have more places where they need money. I know you're very rich, but your money was also earned through hard work by your parents, wasn't it? She stubbornly retorted. After all, Fu Qingye was so young, and if he hadn't started out high, how could he have achieved what he had now? Although she came from a humble background, she acted neither condescending nor arrogant in front of Fu Qingye. Fu Qingye froze. He had always felt that she was young, but in that moment, he felt a maturity in her eyes that didn't match her age. However, for the first time in his life, he was being questioned about his abilities. Someone actually thought that his current achievements were simply the result of a high starting point? His gaze at Xiao Cici became complicated as a result. I am very grateful for your life-saving kindness that night, and I am also grateful for your rescue tonight, but I will not betray my body again. Xiao Cici pretended to bite the large hand he held. Fu Qingye then let go of the woman in his arms. She took the opportunity and slipped out onto the balcony, not daring to go back to the bedroom for a long time. Fu Qingye lay flat on the sofa, feeling like his whole body was on fire and in urgent need of a fire extinguisher. Although he had drunk too much and felt a little lightheaded, his mind was still clear. He just took advantage of the alcohol to act on a thought that he normally wouldn't have acted on. After that night, he had been obsessed with the taste of this woman. Today, when he saw her walking through the nightclub, he almost lost his temper again when he saw her almost getting involved with another man. After all, he was just her employer, so what right did he have to ask about her personal affairs? Thinking about Xiao Cici's frightened, rabbit-like gaze, he felt like a real scumbag, not much different from those old perverts. He had to admit that he still wanted to get her, and that impulse should be innate in any normal man. But he couldn't allow himself to bully a young girl who had just entered society. Thinking about this, he couldn't help but give himself a slap in the face. Xiao Cici did not regret her refusal to let him have sex with her for 50,000 yuan. Although her grandmother urgently needed the money for the surgery, she believed that her beloved grandmother, if she knew that she was trading sex for the money to pay for her surgery, would definitely rather die of pain than agree. The next morning, when Xiao Cici got up, Fu Qingye had already left the house. For many days in a row, they had eaten breakfast together every morning, and today he left early, which she was actually a little unaccustomed to. However, after what happened last night, she hadn't yet figured out how to face him, and it was good that he had left. When Xiao Cici went downstairs, she felt that the domestic helpers in the house were paying more attention to her than ever before, and everyone seemed to really treat her like a young mistress. Facing a whole table of delicious breakfast alone, she was really worried that after working at this job for a long time, she would get used to this pampered life and feel a sense of loss. She couldn't help but wonder if it would be nice if she could pack some of these dishes to take back to her grandmother. She remembered when she was a child, her grandmother knew that her aunt was biased and would always secretly hide some food in her apron, not for her cousins, but for her. Her apron had hidden oranges, peaches, and meat buns. Thinking about it, she became tearful. In any case, she had to gather the money for the operation as soon as possible. Chapter 15. Someone suddenly had a change of heart. She was like a cockroach that just won't die. After breakfast, she started browsing job apps again. After looking at them all, she found that the wages for all jobs except nightclubs were very low. She was a little desperate when she found that a big company called Foo's Group was hiring cleaners, but the age requirement clearly stated 45 years old or older, with a monthly salary of 15,000 yuan. She didn't expect the salary of a cleaner to be so high. The job is a bit more strenuous, but it's a proper job. If she can get the job, she won't have to worry about any dangers. After looking at it, she realized that apart from the age requirement, she didn't have anything that would make her unsuitable for the job. She wondered why the company wanted an older person when most companies prefer younger ones. Could it be that the younger people are afraid of the hard work, so the age requirement was simply written that way? Regardless, she had to give it a try. Maybe they would prefer a younger person for the job because they can work hard. Since she was applying for a cleaner, she changed back into the street clothes she used to wear. Although she was dressed very simply, her pure and pretty face was not covered up in the slightest by her clothes. She arrived at the headquarters of the Fu Group and looked at the building towering into the clouds, secretly admiring it. What kind of person would have the ability to start such a big company? The boss would probably be white-haired and have one foot in the grave, right? However, when she entered the Human Resources Department full of hope, she was turned away before she could show her ability to work hard. Didn't you see that our job advertisement said that the age requirement for cleaners is 45 and above? What job is a 20-year-old girl competing for with an older person? Go away. Supervisor, please give me a chance, okay? Your company is looking for a cleaner, and a 20-year-old can do the job just as well. If you don't believe me, I can do it for free for a few days. If you don't think I'm suitable, you can fire me later. Xiao Cici didn't realize that the Fu Group was so strict about age, and that they actually insisted on hiring older people. Go away, go away. A pretty young girl like you who has no qualifications and comes to our Fu Group to apply for this position is just after the boss. I've seen it a lot. Our boss doesn't like young girls, so get out of here. The supervisor was getting a little impatient. Xiao Cici really needed this job, so she said a few more words and was immediately dragged out by a few security guards. The commotion was a bit loud, attracting a crowd of onlookers. Everyone pointed and stared at Xiao Cici. She's young and doesn't know how to behave, trying to use her beauty to get ahead. Unfortunately, she's in the wrong place. There are so many highly educated top beauties in the secretarial department, and none of them have caught the boss's eye. She can't be naive enough to think that the company's cleaning staff have a chance to get close to Mr. Fu, right? Yes, nowadays young girls are so vain. Not far away, Fu Qingye walked past surrounded by a group of impeccably dressed staff. It seemed that he heard Xiao Cici's voice. After waking up in the morning, the actions from last night when he was drunk kept popping up in his mind. When he suddenly heard Xiao Cici's voice in the company, he thought he was hallucinating. He stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction of the voice, and then he was sure it really was Xiao Cici. She was being carried out by a few security guards. She was blushing and still desperately recommending herself, worried about losing her job opportunity. What happened? Fu Chunye asked his assistant. The cleaning department does not hire anyone under the age of 45, and that woman was insistent on getting the job and was being kicked out. Fu Qingye narrowed his deep, alluring Ruifeng eyes. If he remembered correctly, last night, she was still working part-time at the bar, right? Then she told him she would never work in a nightclub again, and as a result, she came to his company to find a job? Applying for a cleaner? She is quite hardworking. She really went all out to get this job that many people find dirty and tiring. Thinking about her complaining last night that he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and didn't know how ordinary people spent their money, he wondered just how much money she needed. Why was she working so hard? Seeing that Xiao Cici was about to be fired, in the struggle, the legs of her poor quality, worn-out jeans were torn. Fu Qingye simply couldn't bear to watch anymore. Saying hello to the cleaning department, he let her pass. Fu Qingye said, walking towards the executive elevator. The assistant and the staff present were stunned. Did they hear it right? Fu Qingye actually cared about such trivial matters? Moreover, the cleaning department only recruits staff over 45 years old, and he is the one who set this rule. In the past, there were really uneducated but pretty girls who applied for cleaning jobs in order to get close to him. As a result, did he suddenly have a change of heart today and make an exception? In everyone's eyes, handsome, and perfect. All the beautiful words in the world can be used on Fu Qingye, except kindness has nothing to do with him. As a result, he actually had a mercy today? Presumably, the girl desperately wanted a job that many people disdain, and it moved him? Xiao Cici was thrown out the door. From the cold air-conditioned room to the 40-degree high temperature of the earth, the sense of disparity was huge. She realized that in a big city, if you don't have a degree, it's hard to find any job, except for nightclubs, and it's even harder to find a well-paid job. Just when she was feeling a little disheartened, she heard the voice of the supervisor Zhao behind her. He had just been rude to her, but now he suddenly came out after her with a smile on his face. Little girl, you passed the interview. Xiao Cici's expression changed from cloudy to sunny. She couldn't believe it and asked, I thought you weren't hiring anyone under 45? You're in luck. The company has decided to make an exception because they can't find anyone over 45 who can do the job. You can go through the formalities with me now, and if there are no problems, you can start work tomorrow. Seeing Xiao Sisi hesitate, Manager Zhao asked, "What's the matter? Didn't you just say you were hardworking and could take the rough with the smooth?" No, I'll do a good job." Xiao Sisi raised the corners of her lips in delight. She followed Manager Zhao back into the building, went through a series of formalities, and received 2 sets of cleaning staff uniforms. Thinking that she would earn 15,000 yuan a month from this job, Xiao Sisi was not at all afraid of the hard work. That night, Fu Chang returned late at night. Hearing the sound of the door, Xiao Sisi said to herself, "Rich second-generation kids are so cool, they don't need to work, they party every night and come home late every day." After all, she had gone to the nightclub twice and had run into Fu Qingye both times, so she felt that he was a rich kid who didn't need to work and could just spend his parents' money as he pleased. She waited up for him until late at night, just to tell him about the part-time job she had found. He gently pushed open the door and saw Xiao Sisi sitting by the bed looking at him. "Still awake?" Fu Qingye asked, surprised. Chapter 16, Did you report to me? Very good. Tonight, he stayed late at the office working on a new project. He thought Xiao Sisi would have already gone to bed by now, but she was sitting by the bedside full of energy. "Mr. Fu, I've found a new part-time job. I'll be gone during the day starting tomorrow, so it shouldn't affect my work here, right?" Xiao Sisi asked nervously. Because of the nightclub incident, she felt that it was best to tell Fu Qingye about her new job. She thought he would have some kind of opinion about it, but he just nodded lightly as if he knew. It's all under his umbrella anyway." Xiao Sisi was taken aback. She thought he would make things difficult for her, but he didn't even ask what the new part-time job was. Maybe he just didn't care what she did outside the house? "Thank you, Mr. Fu, I won't be home during the day from tomorrow onwards." Xiao Sisi continued to confirm. Fu Qingye suddenly walked up to her, and the tall man leaned down towards her. Xiao Sisi was so scared that her body went rigid. She thought about how he tried to sleep with her last night when he was drunk, and her heart started racing with fear. Her face turned red. "You've learned your lesson and reported to me, right?" He raised the corner of his lips slightly. Then he turned and headed towards the bathroom. Xiao Sisi was confused. She pondered over what Fu Qingye meant. Should she take the part-time job? She was happy to fall asleep after confirming her answer. The next day, Xiao Sisi reported to work at the cleaning department of the Fu Group. She put on the ill-fitting work clothes, which covered her slender teenage figure. Although she was wearing a khaki top and dark brown pants, her still childlike face was still pretty. Supervisor Zhao asked Xiao Sisi to follow the older employees to familiarize herself with the work. The uncles and aunts are all very simple, but they do tend to gossip a lot when they're bored at work. President Fu is quite old, and he still hasn't got a woman. I heard that he has health problems, so he hates women, especially young girls. I never thought that our department would go against the norm and hire such a young girl. Maybe President Fu himself heard the rumors, and he hired Shishi to shut everyone up. Sisi, although you have been hired, you still need to be careful. It is best to wear a mask at work and don't provoke Mr. Fu. Xiao Sisi obediently nodded her head like a nodding pig. After listening to everyone's words, her imagined group boss was just an old man with a strange temper. He was in his 70s or 80s and still hadn't found a woman? Then there must be something physically wrong with him. However, none of this was her business. She was just a cleaner, so she just needed to do her job well. After spending an hour or two, she had a complete understanding of the work of a cleaner. Xiao Sisi obediently put on her mask and began her work pushing the garbage truck. She was assigned to clean the windows on the 33rd floor. Because they were all French windows, she needed to work at a high altitude. Although it was very hard work, she gritted her teeth and endured it, thinking about the high salary. She moved the ladder over and sat at the very top, holding a long-handled glass cleaner in her hand and scrubbing the windows as hard as she could. Wearing a mask and the cleaning staff's uniform, she was inconspicuous in the luxurious office. None of the staff coming and going below paid any attention to her. However, Fu Qingye, who was passing by, saw her at a glance, sitting halfway up the air, cleaning the windows. Fu Qingye had always been afraid of heights. Seeing Xiao Sisi sitting on such a high ladder, his first reaction was danger, and he reflexively wanted to shout at her to come down. Suddenly, he regretted a little bit letting the cleaning department exceptionally hire her. But then he thought, this is a job that Xiao Sisi has worked hard to get, and he shouldn't interfere in her life. Besides, this is also the cleaning department's job. Fu Chengye quickly calmed down. He stood still, keeping a certain distance and watching Xiao Sisi, so that if she fell, he would be able to catch her. However, after staring at her for a while, he noticed that this girl was very capable at work, and it was obvious that she had done a lot of manual labor at home since she was a child. Thinking about this, his heart tightened. Naturally, Fu Chengye was a moving sight wherever he went, and everyone's attention was on him. Everyone noticed that he was clutching an ice Americano and staring into one direction in a daze. Following his line of sight, they soon found the cleaning staff working in midair. No one would have thought that Fu Chengye, who had never been interested in women, would actually stare at a cleaning staff in a daze. Because Xiao Sisi was sitting on a ladder, her back was turned to everyone as she concentrated on her work, and all anyone could see was her conspicuous butt. Xiao Sisi was wearing work clothes, a mask, and the cleaning department also came with a hat, so in everyone's eyes, she was an elderly aunt, and Fu Chengye was obviously peeping at her butt. Fu Chengye took sips of coffee from time to time and watched with relish. He had to admit that after their encounter that night, whenever he saw her, it was hard for his thoughts to be pure. He couldn't help but reminisce. Naturally, his expression looked a bit lewd. Everyone in the office saw it and looked at each other. For a while, rumors spread. The story about Fu Chengye ogling the cleaning lady spread all the way from the secretary department, finally reaching the cleaning department and naturally also reaching Xiao Sisi's ears. Xiao Sisi, the person involved, had no idea that she was being watched by President Fu. She just thought that the old man was staring at another cleaning lady. She couldn't help but curse the perverted old man in her heart. For 2 consecutive days, the entire cleaning department was talking about this. Auntie Li, who was originally in charge of the president's affairs, cried and said with a sad face, I am already at an advanced age, with a full house of children and grandchildren. If President Fu gets involved while watching, then won't I lose my integrity in my later years? No wonder the cleaning staff at the Fu Group are paid so much more than elsewhere and the age requirement is 45 and above. It turns out that the president has such a special hobby. I heard that men who are not good at that can easily develop psychological perversions. I guess that's why our president has a senile fetish. So what should I do? I'm so scared that if President Fu touches my bottom, it'll be terrible. Auntie Li hugged her shoulders, looking like a young girl being coy, but she couldn't help but get excited and look forward to it. Meanwhile, everyone looked at Xiao Sisi. Since President Fu doesn't like young girls, wouldn't it be good to let Sisi take charge of the president's office? One of the aunts suggested. Auntie Li, who had originally said she was worried about losing her reputation in her later years, suddenly refused to do it. On the surface, she said she was afraid of being taken advantage of, but in reality, she would be thrilled if she could be touched by Fu Chengye a few times. That won't do. I'll take responsibility for this myself and not harm the young girl, Auntie Li said. However, everyone said that they should let Xiao Sisi go to the CEO's office for the sake of Auntie Li. After all, no one wanted to take advantage of Auntie Li, because they all wanted to be touched by CEO Fu, so they simply let the young girl that CEO Fu didn't like take charge of the CEO's office. Xiao Sisi wanted to cry but had no tears. Unfortunately, as the employee with the least seniority and the youngest age, she had no say in the cleaning department. She could only take on the job of taking care of the CEO's office. Chapter 17, it turns out that he is the legendary General Manager Fu. Early that morning, Xiao Sisi got up at 6 o'clock. Although she tried her best not to make any noise, she still woke up Fu Chengye, who was sleeping on the sofa. Fu Chengye rubbed his sleepy eyes and saw Xiao Sisi preparing to leave the house with her bag. So early? Where are you going? He asked curiously. To work. Xiao Sisi replied truthfully. Work? Has this woman changed part-time jobs again? If he remembered correctly, the cleaning department of the Fu Group had the same working hours as everyone else, starting at 9 a.m. He lived close to the company, and even if he walked, it would take him 20 minutes to get there, so why did she need to get up so early? Didn't you used to leave the house at 8 a.m.? Fu Chengye couldn't help but ask. Xiao Sisi glanced at the time, a little anxious, but she still explained to Fu Chengye, Mr. Fu, you don't know, our company's boss is really perverted. I heard that he peeked at the cleaning ladies but yesterday. Because of this, the cleaning ladies all refused to go to his office to clean, and they all demanded that I take charge of the boss's office. In order not to run into him, I want to leave early and clean the office before he arrives. Fu Chengye felt like he had been poured a bucket of water over, and suddenly he came to his senses. Isn't the boss of her company Fu Qingye? Is he a pervert? Does he peek at the cleaning lady's butt? Where did all these ridiculous rumors come from? Mr. Fu, there's no time left, I'm leaving first. Xiao Sisi said, hurriedly leaving the house. She left Fu Qingye sitting on the sofa, angry and amused. It seems that he can't sleep anymore. After arriving at the company, Xiao Sisi changed into her work clothes, then carrying a bucket, she entered the president's office early. At this time of day, there was no one in the company. Although she had heard a lot of rumors about General Manager Fu, Xiao Sisi was still in a good mood. She thought that as long as she did her job well and kept a low profile, she would not be fired. For example, before General Manager Fu arrived at the office, she cleaned the office until it was spotless. In this way, would a big company boss find fault with a little cleaning lady? It took her more than an hour to tidy up the office so that it was almost mirror-like. Xiao Sisi was sweating profusely. She was carrying a bucket and was just about to leave the office when she heard footsteps approaching. Xiao Sisi's heart tightened, and she was secretly depressed. She had finished cleaning on time, so she should not have run into Mr. Fu. Besides, the old man should have woken up late, so it was unlikely that he would be in the office at this hour. Thinking about the various perverted rumors about Mr. Fu, her heart was in her throat when the footsteps got closer and closer. The next second, someone pushed open the office door. Xiao Sisi was a little overwhelmed, holding a rag in one hand and a bucket in the other. Unexpectedly, the person who pushed the door in was the tall and handsome Fu Qingye. He was dressed in formal attire as usual, exuding a sense of rigor from head to toe, except for the fact that he had one hand in his pocket, revealing a hint of carelessness. Xiao Sisi's eyes widened in disbelief, unable to believe that Fu Qingye would be here. At the same time, she was relieved to confirm that it wasn't the old man who had entered the office. Xiao Sisi turned to ask, Mr. Fu, why are you here? Could it be that Fu Qingye is from the secretarial department? Xiao Sisi had learned a lot about the cleaning department, and she knew that the secretarial department of the Fu Group was very good, with first-class talent and high salaries. No wonder Fu Qingye came from a wealthy family, it turns out that he has a job. So you do have a job? Xiao Sisi blurted out in surprise. Fu Qingye looked at Xiao Sisi, who was still wearing her mask after cleaning, and felt an indescribable annoyance. In her current attire, she would be unrecognizable to anyone who didn't know her. You think I don't have a job? Fu Qingye retorted. Because I ran into you twice at the nightclub, I'm sorry. Xiao Sisi felt apologetic for misunderstanding him. She thought that the rich second generation only needed to spend money. Usually, when he said he was going out to work, she thought he was lying to his grandmother. After all, he could even lie to his girlfriend. Little did she know that Fu Qingye went to the nightclub once to discuss work and once to meet up with friends by chance. He actually rarely went to nightclubs, and as a result, he met Xiao Sisi both times. Xiao Sisi glanced at the time on the wall, nervously said to Fu Qingye, Mr. Fu, the boss may be here soon, I'll go out first, bye. Oh, by the way, don't get his office dirty, I just worked hard on the hygiene and don't want to get into trouble. Fu Qingye narrowed his deep eyes. He came to the office early today in order to dispel the so-called rumors, but it turned out that this little girl mistook him for going to work? Does he really look so unlike a big boss? Fu Qingye stood still, not knowing what to say to the panicking girl in front of him. At this moment, an old employee of the secretary department, Lao Zhou, walked in. Xiao Sisi was carrying a bucket and was about to go out when she saw Lao Zhou, who was half white-haired, and she was so scared that her face turned pale. Good morning, Mr. Fu. Goodbye, Mr. Fu. Xiao Sisi greeted Lao Zhou. Lao Zhou was in his 50s, the oldest in the secretarial department, and the person in Xiao Sisi's eyes who most resembles the boss. However, even Lao Zhou is younger than the boss she imagined. Moreover, he looks decent and has a kind face. Xiao Sisi did not change her opinion of him because of his appearance, but rather her first reaction was that you really cannot judge a book by its cover. This President Fu was really a hypocrite who was disrespectful in his old age. She thought this to herself, avoided Zhou's gaze, and was about to leave with the bucket in her hand. Zhou was a little dazed for a moment before he reacted. The cleaning lady had called him General Fu. Just as Xiao Sisi was about to walk out the office door, he reached out and stopped her. Xiao Sisi was shocked when she saw Zhou's outstretched hand. Does General Fu have something else to say? She was on the verge of tears. Are you new to the cleaning department? I'm not Mr. Fu, the one inside is, so don't call me by the wrong name. Lao Zhou's face turned pale with fear. After all, he was called Mr. Fu in front of Fu Qingye, so how could he not be afraid? It would be bad if he got fired because of a little cleaning lady's mistake with the name. Xiao Sisi froze for a moment and asked back, "Is there someone else in there? Isn't it just Fu Qingye?" Fu Qingye shook his head helplessly and looked at Xiao Sisi with a smile. So, in her eyes, he is not a human being? Do you want to quit? Isn't this Mr. Fu? Old Joe reminded in a low voice, secretly feeling a cold sweat for her. Xiao Sisi finally reacted. The main reason was that the Fu Group was so big that from the moment she came for the interview, she had a preconceived idea that the company boss must be an old man in his 70s or 80s. Plus, she had heard a lot of rumors about Fu Qingye in the cleaning department, and she had always thought that the boss was a perverted old man. She really never imagined that Fu Qingye was the Fu Zong in everyone's mouth who peeked at the cleaning ladies' butt. Chapter 18 Qingye, let's get married. Fu Zong? Xiao Sisi looked at Fu Qingye with a strange expression in her eyes. Thinking about what she said before leaving the house in the morning, Fu Qingye could guess the meaning in the girl's eyes. He was both angry and helpless. Fu Qingye had never deliberately hidden his identity. It was Xiao Sisi's poverty that limited her imagination. She really couldn't imagine that the boss of such a large corporation was actually young and handsome. I really don't know where the cleaning department gets the idea that he is old. Perhaps in the eyes of the uncles and aunts, Fu Qingye is indeed considered old at 29 years old and not in a relationship. Sorry, Mr. Fu. Goodbye, Mr. Fu. Xiao Sisi said, and slipped away like the wind with her bucket. Fu Qingye watched her back as she shook her head and smiled, her eyes filled with a faint sense of affection. Lao Zhou had worked with Fu Qingye for many years, but this was the first time he had seen Fu Qingye's usually serious face reveal such a smile with a hint of spring. He couldn't help but think of the recent rumors that Fu had been peeping at the cleaning lady's buttocks. He didn't believe it at first, but when he saw Fu Qingye smile at the cleaning lady's back, he couldn't help but shiver. After all, Xiao Sisi was well wrapped up, with a hat and a mask, plus old-fashioned work clothes and red plastic gloves that even covered her hands, so she was completely unrecognizable. Xiao Sisi ran all the way to the cleaning department's rest area, where she washed the cloths while she sorted out her thoughts. Fu Qingye was actually the boss of the Fu Group? Then he was the richest man in China, as everyone said? Xiao Sisi quickly opened her phone and searched for Fu Qingye's name, and she was absolutely shocked. This was her first time at the Fu family home, and she had visited Fu Qingye's main residence and his private residence. She had already been shocked by his wealth, but she had never imagined that he was the richest man in China. In other words, there were houses like Fu's all over the world. No wonder he had taken her to the mall before and spent millions without batting an eyelid. As a result, Xiao Sisi thought that Fu Qingye was a rich second generation who spent money like water and didn't need to work. Now, after a quick search online, she learned that after Fu Qingye's father was killed, the Fu Group was on the verge of bankruptcy. At a young age, he shouldered the entire family, and under his leadership, the Fu Group entered a new peak, completely surpassing his father's generation. It turned out that Fu Qingye was not just a rich second generation who only knows how to spend money in wine. He is a legendary figure. Thinking about the various rumors she had foolishly told him in the morning, she really wanted to bang her head against a wall and die. Come to think of it, when Xiao Sisi told him the other day that she had found a part-time job, he had looked completely normal. Could it be that he had known that she had been hired by the Fu Group? Could it even be that his influence had been behind her exceptional admission? Yesterday, the cleaning ladies said that Fu Qingye had been peeping at the cleaning ladies' butts. She had been on the 33rd floor at that time. Could it be that he had been peeping at her butt? The more Xiao Sisi thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Fu Qingye's office needed to be cleaned 3 times a day. At noon, when the cleaning staff finished work, they needed to clean the CEO's office again. Now Xiao Sisi was in charge of Fu Qingye's office in the cleaning department, and after the time was up, she had to pluck up her courage and knock on his office door. "Come in." His voice came from inside, magnetic and pleasant to the ear. Xiao Sisi walked into the office with her bucket, and she felt his deep gaze coming from the direction of the desk. "Good afternoon, Mr. Fu." Xiao Sisi greeted him. Before entering, she had adjusted her mindset, ignored Fu Qingye's presence, and bowed her head to work diligently. After wiping the desk, she began mopping the floor with her back to Fu Qingye. Fu Qingye was waiting for a meal at this time, and he leaned back in his executive chair, unable to stop looking at Xiao Sisi. He had never seen a cleaner work so hard. For some reason, watching her work so hard made him feel very distressed. He wanted to tell her to stop and rest. Why did he always feel sympathy for her? The problem was that Xiao Sisi was wearing her work clothes, which made her look like an ordinary auntie to everyone else, but in his eyes, she still looked like a bright young girl. At this moment, her bottom was facing the sky as she worked hard mopping the floor, swaying back and forth in front of his eyes, and it even aroused his prurient thoughts again. A man's libido either sleeps soundly or never sleeps. Once it is awakened, it can never return. While feeling sorry for her hard work, he couldn't help but imagine what it would be like to have sex with her in the office. For this reason, he stared at her ass in a daze, his gaze complex, revealing a little pity for her. It was at this time that the office door was slammed open, and the angry voice of a woman came in. Chen, do you know that recently there have been rumors all over the company that you have a fetish for older men, saying that you peek at the cleaning lady's butt? This really makes me mad. When Tian Yayuan's voice fell, she caught the sight of Fu Qingye staring at the cleaning lady's butt in a daze, and froze in front of the office door. Xiao Sisi was startled and looked back at Fu Qingye. As a result, he had been staring at Xiao Sisi so intently because he had just had a dirty thought about her that he simply did not have time to take his eyes off her. When he came to his senses, he looked flustered and his expression was like that of a thief caught red-handed. Xiao Sisi felt like her head had exploded. So while she was trying her best to mop the floor, Fu Qingye was peeping at her butt? Facing the strange looks of the two women, Fu Qingye felt like he couldn't defend himself. Fu Qingye, you are really hopeless, you actually peeked at the cleaning lady's butt? I'm so sad, do you know? I would rather you ignore me when I was little than for you to get hurt trying to save me. Tian Yayuan's tears flowed. Tian Yayuan and Fu Qingye have known each other since they were children. That year, on their way home from school, Tian Yayuan was kidnapped by her father's rival. Fu Qingye saved her by saying he was the Fu group's young master and asking the kidnappers to let the girl go first. Tian Yayuan was unharmed, but Fu Qingye was rescued with minor injuries and was also affected in that area. This made Tian Yayuan feel very guilty, and she vowed from that moment on that she would marry Fu Qingye no matter what he became in the future. She loves him and is grateful to him. Over the years, she has become a dazzling superstar, but she has zero scandals in the entertainment industry. As a result, every time she confessed her love to Fu Qingye, he rejected her on the grounds that he didn't feel anything. Qingye, let's get married. Tian Yayuan approached with tears in her eyes, and spoke directly to Fu Qingye. Xiao Sisi, who was standing nearby, was shocked. She never imagined that she would encounter such a shocking event while cleaning Fu Qingye's office. A woman actually proposed to Fu Qingye? And when she looked more closely, it was the popular actress Tian Yayuan, wasn't it? For some reason, her hand holding the mop was trembling slightly, and her heart felt heavy. Chapter 19, the first time she saw him interested in a woman with her own eyes. She realized that deep down, after that night, she still regarded him as a different existence from other men. However, the dazzling superstar Tian Yayuan really looked good standing with him, and Xiao Sisi knew her own limitations and would never try to climb the social ladder because of what happened that night. She could only continue mopping the floor and try to be as invisible as possible. She thought that a woman as beautiful and successful as Tian Yayuan, who had lowered herself to propose, would definitely be accepted by Fu Qingye. But she never imagined that he would say with a dark face, Tian Yayuan, I have told you many times, I don't have feelings for you, so don't flatter yourself. You don't have feelings for me? You even peeked at the cleaning lady, do you think I would believe that? Tian Yayuan was still very confident in her appearance. She was a big beauty in the entertainment industry that was full of beautiful women and could not be ignored. If Fu Qingye were a normal man, she might believe that he would not look down on her, given his qualifications. But he is an only child, and he might not be able to do it at all. What's more, he has already gone so far as to develop a senile fetish. How could she possibly believe that he would not look down on her? Fu Qingye replied with a cold face, it's your business if you don't believe me. Tian Yayuan's face turned from green to white. She had put aside her aura as a movie star and proposed to him, but he was still unmoved? Fu Qingye, I mean it when I say I want to marry you. I really appreciate what you did back then, because I caused you to be impotent. I blame myself for it, and I want to be responsible for your life. After we get married, I'm willing to make our relationship public. It's as if she were the one in control of the relationship, pitying him. Xiao Sisi, who was quietly eating melon, thought to herself, why does everyone around Fu Qingye think he's impotent? He's obviously very capable. I'm serious too. Get out, or I'll call security. Fu Qingye's face showed obvious disgust. Tian Yayuan was so angry that her face turned red. She suddenly took a few steps to Xiao Cixi's side, lifted the hat off her head, and angrily said, "You say you're serious, so at least find someone young and pretty, and I'll be relieved. But you've gone so far as to ogle the cleaning lady. Do you think I'll let you go easily?" Xiao Cixi has been wearing a hat all day at work recently. The sudden feeling of the hat being lifted is like her clothes being stripped off. A hint of panic is visible in her round, big eyes. At the same time, Tian Yayuan's gaze also falls on Xiao Cixi's face. Although Xiao Cixi is still wearing a mask, after the hat is gone, her long, dark, glossy hair falls down, and the skin outside the mask is white and tender, as if it could be pinched to get water out of it. At a glance, she looks very young. She stared with wide eyes, and the next second, along with the mask on Xiao Cixi's face, she pulled it off. What fell into her line of sight was a pure and lovely little face, as clear as crystal clear stream water, extremely clean, and giving a very comfortable feeling. Even though Tian Yayuan had seen many beautiful women in all shapes and sizes in the entertainment industry, she was still amazed by the unspoiled purity of the young girl in front of her. "Didn't you say that the Fu Group only hires older cleaning staff? How did you get a job here? Could it be that you used someone else's identity to get close to Mr. Fu?" Tian Yayuan stared at Xiao Cixi, not sure if she was talking to herself or interrogating Xiao Cixi. Xiao Cixi didn't want to get involved in their business and looked a little overwhelmed. Tian Yayuan quickly made up her mind. "Chen Ye, did you know that the cleaning department has hired a young girl? This girl is young and has worked hard to get a job as a cleaner at the Fu Group. She is obviously after you, so you should fire her." Tian Yayuan pointed at Xiao Cixi. She didn't like the idea of a young and pretty girl being around Fu Qingye. She was confident that Fu Qingye would listen to her and fire the cleaner. Xiao Cixi trembled with nervousness. What should she do? Tian Yayuan seemed to have an unusual relationship with Fu Qingye. If she offended her, would she lose both jobs? Xiao Cixi's face turned pale as she nervously looked in the direction of Fu Qingye. She was hired normally after passing the interview, not by chance. As long as she didn't make any major mistakes at work, the company wouldn't dismiss any employee at will. Fu Qingye said in an impartial manner. Xiao Cixi didn't expect that even though Tian Yayuan was so angry, he would still help her. "In other words, you knew she was a young girl?" Tian Yayuan asked incredulously. "I knew." Fu Qingye replied indifferently. Tian Yayuan looked up and down at Xiao Cixi twice. She suddenly began to realize that Fu Qingye was ogling the butt of a pretty little girl, not an aunt in her 50s. She was even more reluctant to accept the fact that he was not psychologically abnormal. Her stunning face became distorted. In private, she was strong and assertive, which was a far cry from the gentle woman she portrayed on screen. She had known Fu Qingye for so long, and it was the first time she had seen him interested in a woman. No, it couldn't be. Even if Fu Qingye was interested in this little girl, it was only because she was a little cleaner with nothing, and in front of her, he wouldn't feel inferior. If she made a move, how could it be her turn with this little cleaner? Knowing that you still won't let her go? Tian Yayuan asked angrily. Tian Yayuan, when did you start meddling in my company's hiring matters? Fu Qingye asked back unhappily. Tian Yayuan's face turned white and green. Get out immediately, don't make me order you not to enter the Fu family gates. Fu Qingye's face was as cold as ice. Even Xiao Cixi, who was standing nearby, felt that he was being a bit too harsh on the other person. But in Tian Yayuan's eyes, this was all caused by Fu Qingye's inferiority complex in front of her. He was just being extra harsh on her because he wanted her to find happiness elsewhere. She gritted her teeth and glared at Xiao Cixi, warning her, "You'd better get your head straight. You're just a cleaning lady, do you really deserve Fu Qingye? Even if he is not good enough, he is still not someone you, in your position, can hook up with." Xiao Cixi glanced at Fu Qingye. Although she felt aggrieved for him, a man. After all, he really wasn't not good enough. Seeing that Fu Qingye was about to call the security guard, Tian Yayuan could only turn her head and leave to avoid being thrown out. In the office, only Fu Qingye and Xiao Cixi were left. Xiao Cixi quickly continued to mop the floor with her head bowed. She could only swallow her anger at having accidentally eaten with Fu Qingye, the popular movie star. Therefore, she worked even harder. Fu Qingye had never seen such a hard-working girl before. Girls her age were under the protection of their parents, still in school, wearing pretty little dresses, and enjoying their youth to the fullest. The girls around Fu Qingye are all from good families, with exquisite makeup, and none of them work as hard as her. The thought of others being able to scold her as they like, but she turning pale and not daring to reply for fear of losing her job, caused a vague pain in his heart. With a click, Fu Chunye locked the door, and then returned to his chair. Xiao Sisi, don't do it anymore. Fu Chunye's voice came. Chapter 20. For the first time, someone offered her a helping hand. Xiao Sisi was shocked. She thought that although he had apparently dismissed Tian Yuan, he was actually still listening to her and planning to fire her. She froze in her movements as she mopped the floor and looked sideways at him. President Fu, would you please give me another chance? I will work hard and never tell anyone what I just heard. Fu Chunye then realized that he had spoken too sternly. I told you to stop for now and return to your main job. His voice was much gentler. For some reason, he really couldn't bear to see this little person busy working in front of him. Xiao Sisi only reacted then. The boss of both her jobs was Fu Chunye, and pretending to be his girlfriend was her main job, the one she was more afraid of losing. Xiao Sisi then put away the mop and asked, so I take these back to the cleaning department? Come and sit down. Fu Chunye pointed to the chair across from his desk. Xiao Sisi put down the mop and obediently came to the opposite side of Fu Chunye and sat down in the chair at his signal. Mr. Fu, is there something wrong? Xiao Sisi nervously clasped her hands together and gazed into Fu Chunye's deep eyes. Take the card, use it if you need to, and don't do the cleaning job anymore. Fu Chunye handed Xiao Sisi his own secondary card, which could be used without any limit. Xiao Sisi was stunned. She realized that, instead of dismissing her because of Tian Yuan, he had seen her predicament and wanted to help her. This was the first time in many years that someone had unconditionally offered her a helping hand. Xiao Sisi's eyes were a little red. Although she was short of money and very grateful, she still waved her hand to refuse. President Fu, thank you for your kindness, but I can't accept your money for no reason, except for my work compensation, Xiao Sisi said. Just take it if I tell you to, Fu Chunye ordered strongly. I know that you don't lack money, but your money is also earned through your hard work running the company. I am still young and can also create wealth with my own hands. Xiao Sisi is very ambitious at heart, and she is also worried that Fu Chunye will propose other conditions. For example, after getting drunk that time, he once offered 50,000 to buy her once, and now the whole company is saying that he peeked at the cleaning lady's butt. After what just happened, she suspects that Fu Chunye was peeking at her butt. The more she thinks about it, the more scared she feels. It's better not to casually take money from men. Just because she gave in the first time and didn't have a choice, it doesn't mean that she has to sell her self-respect all the time. She pulled up her chair and got up, saying, President Fu just said that the company would not fire employees casually if they didn't make any major mistakes. Xiao Sisi didn't take the card he gave her and continued to clean the bathroom. Fu Chunye ran his fingers along his high-nose bridge and gazed at Xiao Sisi's back. All the women he met wanted him to shower them with money, but she was different. She didn't want his money? Perhaps he had met too many gold-digging women, but this simple woman inexplicably attracted him. Watching her sweat, his heart felt like it was being pulled, a feeling of tension. After more than half an hour, she finally walked out of Fu Chunye's office. He had thought that, like before, she would remain a transparent person in the company, but when she walked out, many people from the secretarial department gathered around. Auntie, were you in there just now? Did you hear what General Manager Fu was talking about with the celebrity? What did they say? Why did Tian Yuan rush out so angrily? Xiao Sisi couldn't help feeling guilty when she thought about the part she had played in Tian Yuan's anger. She didn't want to satisfy everyone's gossiping urges, so she hid her face behind her mask, shook her head, and walked away with her tools in hand while keeping her head down. Why isn't this auntie saying anything? Could it be that she's mute? She is just an auntie who does the cleaning. She definitely won't pay attention to gossip, so don't make things difficult for her. Someone said that the people who wanted to know the gossip were naturally disappointed. Xiao Sisi just wanted to do her job well and raise the money for her grandmother's operation as soon as possible, and she didn't want to get involved in the company's messy affairs. She went to the pantry to do the cleaning instead. She was facing the floor and mopping the floor with her bottom facing the sky when two little secretaries entered the pantry laughing. One of them accidentally bumped into Xiao Sisi, causing her to fall towards the shelf. A delicate tea set fell with a loud bang and instantly shattered into pieces. One of the pieces grazed the back of Xiao Sisi's hand, which happened to be gloved. The sharp pain spread throughout her body. Xiao Sisi took a step back in shock. The two secretaries glanced at each other and realized that the tea set they had broken was Fu Qingye's beloved one, which had been specially customized by a master potter. There was no way to buy a second set, and it was expensive. The two of them were terrified. They glanced at each other, as if they had reached some kind of understanding, and both pointed at Xiao Sisi at the same time. Lin Fenfen shouted, "Auntie, you're finished. You broke Fu's favorite tea set. Go and discuss compensation with the head of cleaning yourself." "What are you talking about? It wasn't you two bumping into me that caused the tea set to fall? How can you frame me instead?" Xiao Sisi was terrified. She knew at a glance that the tea set was not cheap, and she definitely couldn't afford to pay for it. She absolutely could not be framed for nothing. As the two sides argued, they attracted the attention of many people from the secretarial department. Naturally, Lin Fenfen and the others were from the secretarial department and had been at the company for a long time. Plus, the two of them agreed that Xiao Sisi had broken the teaware, and she had a cut on the back of her hand from the teacup, so it was hard to argue with the evidence. This auntie doesn't look very old, but she's really clumsy. She broke President Fu's cup and still refuses to admit it. What a shame. Of course you can't tell her age from the hat and mask. There are no young people in the cleaning department. Everyone's skin is better than their faces. I'll tell you, these ants have the worst quality. It's not like no auntie has broken something before, but none of them have blamed it on someone else like her. Everyone spoke at once, not listening to Xiao Sisi's defense at all. Xiao Sisi once again experienced the evil of human nature. Hurry up and clean up. After you're done, you can either pay for the damage or resign. The manager said with a cold face. Although I am a cleaning lady, I didn't break the cup, so why should I clean it up? They should be the ones to clean it up. Xiao Sisi was very scared, but she still boldly defended herself. She pointed at Lin Fenfen and the other woman. Lin Fenfen then said, "Manager, this ant is being unreasonable. Just tell the security guards to take it away." The manager quickly called the security guards. The two tall security guards received their orders and dragged Xiao Sisi left and right towards the elevator. "Let go of me, I didn't break the cup, why are you doing this to me?" Xiao Sisi kicked her legs, refusing to take this kind of silent loss. Besides, she couldn't lose her job. However, no one took her words seriously. Just as she was about to be dragged into the elevator, Fu Qingye's voice came over. "Let go of him." His voice was cold and terrifying. Chapter 21, Our CEO Fu has really gone crazy. When she saw Fu Qingye, Xiao Sisi's vision completely blurred. She didn't know why, but whenever she saw him, she felt even more aggrieved. After all, it wasn't the first time he had appeared like an angel when she was in danger. The two security guards quickly released Xiao Sisi's body upon receiving the order. No one expected Fu Qingye to get involved in such matters. "What happened?" Fu Qingye asked. Lin Fenfen, who was in the crowd, was afraid that Xiao Sisi would say something inappropriate in front of the boss, so she quickly said, "President Fu, the cleaning lady broke your beloved teaware, and the manager told her to go to the cleaning department to complete the exit procedures." "President Fu, I didn't break the cup. It fell when they two bumped into me while playing." Xiao Sisi shook her head and explained. "Manager Fu, she is slandering me. We both saw with our own eyes that she accidentally broke the cup while cleaning. As a result, she falsely accused us. Look, she even has a cut on her hand from when she broke the cup." Lin Fenfen pointed to Xiao Sisi's bloody hand. Fu Qingye's gaze then fell on her hand. Xiao Sisi had very fair skin, but back home, she had also worked all year round, and her hands were much rougher than those of girls her age. However, it was still possible to see that her hands were very pretty, and if she took good care of them, she would definitely be able to restore them to their former delicate state. The moment he saw the wound on the back of her hand, his eyebrows furrowed. "Manager Chen, when did the company become so inhumane? You want to fire someone for accidentally breaking a cup?" Fu Qingye asked in return. "But you broke the little lotus tea set that Master Yao custom made for you." Lin Fenfen anxiously interrupted. "If you talk about the price of that tea set, it starts at least several 100,000 yuan. Lin Fenfen and the others, who actually broke the tea set, are extremely afraid. President Fu, you have to believe me, I really didn't break it." Xiao Shi hoped that Fu Qingye would believe her and explain again. "Then check the surveillance camera," Fu Qingye said. "President Fu, the surveillance camera in the pantry has just broken down and hasn't been repaired yet," Manager Chen whispered in reply. Under these circumstances, the two veteran employees pointed directly at Xiao Sisi as the culprit for breaking the tea set. Xiao Sisi, a new employee in the cleaning staff responsible for cleaning the pantry, was really the most suspicious person. The entire secretarial department had already concluded that it was Xiao Sisi who broke it, and there was simply no way for her to explain. After Fu Qingye learned that the surveillance camera was broken, he immediately changed his tone and said, "Our Fu Group is not an impersonal company. Since it was an accident, it's fine." Everyone in the room was shocked. This really wasn't like Fu Qingye's style. Although Xiao Sisi felt aggrieved, she naturally breathed a sigh of relief when Fu Qingye did not pursue the matter and did not hold it against her. She had no money to compensate for the tea set, and she didn't want to be fired. In the absence of evidence, this was already the best outcome. Lin Fenfen and the other female employee also breathed a sigh of relief. They really didn't expect Fu Qingye to suddenly become so tolerant. That was one of his beloved tea sets. He had always been very demanding of his employees. Employees should be rigorous in their work and not be allowed to fool around in the office. In this situation, accidentally breaking the tea set was also a violation of company regulations. The cleaning staff should even more cherish all the company's property. Breaking such an expensive tea set naturally made them an employee who had made a major mistake and should have been dismissed and made to pay compensation. In the past, Fu Qingye would never have let it go. After saying that, he put one hand in his pocket and prepared to return to the office. Xiao Sisi felt like she had been escorted to the execution ground. She felt completely distracted and was relieved only when she was sure that everything was fine. Lin Fenfen was very unhappy with what Xiao Sisi had just done in front of Fu Qingye. As soon as Fu Qingye turned around, she said viciously, "What are you still doing here? Go clean up the tea set in the pantry." Fu Qingye's pace paused, and the fist hidden in his pocket clenched slightly. He glanced in the direction of Xiao Sisi. Although he couldn't see her face clearly, he could already imagine that her face must be pale with no blood when she was being shouted at. Xiao Sisi glared at Lin Fenfen. Although she was very grateful to Fu Qingye for not caring, this matter had really benefited Lin Fenfen and the other. She knew that if she continued to blame Lin Fenfen and the others, it would only bring things back to square one. She was not sure if Fu Qingye, who had been so forgiving, would not become angry with all three of them. After thinking about it, she realized that cleaning the pantry was her job, so she could only hold her anger and get ready to clean up the broken tea set. No one expected Fu Qingye to suddenly say, "You go clean the pantry. You come to my office." Fu Qingye told Lin Fenfen to clean the tea set and gave Xiao Sisi a finger-crossing signal. Under the strange stares of everyone, Xiao Sisi's little face under the mask burned hot. How could she feel that she would rather clean the broken tea set than Fu Qingye's ambiguous finger-crossing signal to let her into his office? Lin Fenfen couldn't believe her ears. She was the CEO's secretary, and cleaning the trash was obviously the janitor's job, so why did President Fu tell her to do it? But since it was the boss's order, even though she didn't want to, she had to do it. The arrogance she had just now in front of Xiao Sisi disappeared instantly, and it was replaced by a gaze of secret rivalry. She couldn't help but look at Xiao Sisi twice, and she couldn't wait to lift her hat to see what the cleaning lady looked like. Xiao Sisi didn't know why Fu Qingye had asked her to go to his office, but since it was the boss's order, she didn't even dare to ask and followed him into the office. As soon as the door to the president's office closed, the office hall suddenly came to life. Oh my god! Did everyone feel that Mr. Fu was particularly different with that auntie? Aren't we all talking about him peeking at the cleaning lady's buttocks? Just now, Tian Yayuan even barged into his office because of this, so it seems that it's true. Our boss Fu has really gone crazy. In the office, as soon as Xiao Sisi entered, Fu Qingye locked the door. Every time she heard him lock the door, Xiao Sisi couldn't help but feel a sense of alarm. "Boss Fu, do you need me for something?" Xiao Sisi asked uneasily. "Sit on the sofa," he ordered softly. Then he walked into the personal lounge built into the president's office. As Xiao Sisi sat down on the sofa, she felt uneasy inside, afraid that he still didn't believe her and would privately ask her to repay him with her body for the teaware set and so on. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. Until Fu Qingye came out with medicine in his hands. "The wound needs to be treated, it wouldn't look good if the girl gets scars on her hands." Fu Qingye squatted down in front of her and gently held her little hand. Only when he held her hand did he realize that the girl's fingers actually had calluses. Chapter 22 Why are you being so nice to me? Without saying a word, he bowed his head and silently cleaned her wound and applied a band-aid. Xiao Sisi was dumbfounded. She really was being paranoid. She never imagined that he would notice her wound and take special care of it. A warm current rose in her heart and did not dissipate for a long time. I really didn't break the cup. Xiao Sisi looked into his eyes and explained. She didn't want to take the blame for being specially cared for. I know. It was precisely because he believed her that he had just planned to adjust the surveillance camera, and only temporarily stopped when he learned that a broken surveillance camera would not help her case. Having gained his trust, Xiao Sisi's anger at being wronged gradually subsided. After all, it was Fu Qingye's cup that had been broken, and it was enough for the person concerned to believe her. If you need money, just let me know. You can keep the job of cleaning lady if you want, or let me know if you don't want to do it. Fu Qingye got up and tightened the cap of the medicine bottle in his hand. Xiao Sisi looked at the tall and handsome Fu Qingye blankly. Moved, she couldn't help but ask, "Why are you so good to me?" Fu Qingye froze in his movements. He had to admit that he really did feel something special for Xiao Sisi. It was like compensation for that night. After saying that, Fu Qingye took the medicine and turned to go into the restroom. He left Xiao Sisi blushing red, continuing to sit on the sofa. She had to admit that even though these days the two of them tacitly avoided mentioning that night, the incident was still stuck in their hearts. She still couldn't believe that she and Fu Qingye had done the most intimate thing in the world, and that it was 7 times in one night. She blushed with shame when she thought about it. She would never ask Fu Qingye for extra money. That would be no different from Auntie Lu selling her to an old man. If she doesn't want money, Fu Qingye will always be her savior. When Xiao Sisi walked out of the office, everyone's gaze turned to her. At first, they thought that Fu Qingye had probably punished Lin Fenfen for cleaning up the broken tea set and Xiao Sisi for coming to the office. However, someone with a sharp eye noticed that there was a Fu family exclusive band-aid on the back of Xiao Sisi's hand. It was produced in-house and not sold to the public, and its effect was better than those on the market. But it is unlikely that an ordinary employee would have this brand of medicine. So when Fu Qingye called Xiao Sisi into his office, the only possibility was that he was applying medicine to her. Everyone's jaws dropped when they realized this. Fu is so special to an old cleaning lady, I'm afraid she is really hopeless. That night, Xiao Sisi walked back to Yujing as usual in order to save on bus fare. After walking for about 5 minutes, a familiar Rolls-Royce stopped in front of her. The window lowered, and she could only see Fu Qingye driving the car himself, signaling to her, "Get in." "It's okay, I can just walk," Xiao Sisi politely said. "Get in the car on your way." He lowered his voice. Xiao Sisi hesitated for a moment. She wouldn't run into any colleagues in the neighborhood, and getting in the car would be equivalent to restoring her status as his girlfriend. So she opened the car door and got into the passenger seat. Xiao Sisi has only taken Fu Cheng's car a limited number of times, but every time she gets in his car, she still feels uncomfortable. She always feels that the car is too luxurious, and she is always afraid of dirtying the seat cushions or even breaking something, because she has heard that car repairs are expensive, especially for luxury cars, which can cost tens of thousands of yuan. So she is very careful even when fastening her seatbelt, and she doesn't dare sit too heavily. "Why do you walk every day? Isn't there a special bus line from the company to your home? It's also very convenient to take a taxi." Fu Qingye asked. Xiao Sisi blushed and was really embarrassed to say that she was trying to save the $1 bus fare. "It's only 2 stops, and it's only a 20-minute walk, so it's like weight loss," Xiao Sisi replied. Fu Qingye glanced at her thin body and couldn't help but say, "Working all day at the company isn't enough to lose weight for you? If you lose any more weight, you'll just be a skeleton. Will that look good?" Xiao Sisi stammered for a long time and simply didn't answer. "And why do you always sit like a model in the car? Is it uncomfortable?" Fu Qingye was a little puzzled. Xiao Sisi touched her head and said apologetically, "I'm afraid I can't afford to pay for any damage to the car." Fu Qingye laughed helplessly. "My car is not made of tofu, how can it be damaged? This little girl really underestimates the quality of luxury cars, doesn't she?" At Fu Qingye's request, she gradually leaned back against the backrest, and sure enough, it was much more comfortable. At this time, Fu Qingye's phone rang. It was Fu's grandmother calling, but he was wearing a Bluetooth headset. "I'm not going back for dinner," Fu Qingye said to Fu's grandmother on the other end of the line. "Not going back? Where are you going to eat then?" Xiao Sisi thought he was talking to her. Fu Qingye glanced at her sideways and continued speaking to Fu's grandmother on the other end of the line. "I have a girlfriend now, so of course I'll be eating with my little girlfriend." On the spot, Xiao Sisi felt like she had been shot, her heart pierced, suffocating, and uncomfortable. Did he mean the big star Tian Yayuan from the day? Oh. Although she felt uncomfortable for no reason, she still replied. She knew that Fu Qingye didn't even have a girlfriend, and it had nothing to do with her, but people have a damn possessive nature. Maybe because she had had it, it seemed a bit unimaginable that he would do that kind of thing with someone else. Fu Qingye glanced at the girl next to him again and saw that her face was a little pale, as if she was extremely depressed. Grandma, I have to go, I'm driving. Bye. Fu Qingye hung up the phone. Xiao Sisi suddenly realized something. Weren't you just talking to me? I'm wearing a Bluetooth headset and talking to my grandmother. Fu Qingye pointed at his ear. Xiao Sisi was so embarrassed that she really wished she could find a hole to crawl into. She had to admit that she was old-fashioned and didn't know that you could answer the phone without using your hands, as long as you had a headset. He suppressed a smile as he watched her face turn red. So, did you just think I was talking about another girlfriend? Fu Qingye asked with a crooked smile. After all, after he said that, Xiao Sisi's face visibly turned pale. Yes, I thought that was your girlfriend this morning. I'm sorry. Xiao Sisi was too embarrassed to look at Fu Qingye next door. Oh, so embarrassed. Tian Yayuan and I were classmates in elementary school. When I was young, I saved her out of justice, and she has been obsessed with me ever since. I don't have any feelings for her, and we don't have any other relationship. Fu Qingye explained to Xiao Sisi while driving. He didn't know why, but he didn't want Xiao Sisi to misunderstand. At that moment, her heart felt comfortable as if the fog had dispersed. In fact, you are not obliged to explain all this to me. Xiao Sisi felt respected, which was still pleasant. Although you are pretending to be my girlfriend, I will not look for other women during this period of time, Fu Qingye said seriously. Xiao Sisi obediently nodded. After thinking about it, if he has a girlfriend, why does he need to pretend to be one? Chapter 23 Mr. Fu, please help me again. The next morning, when Xiao Sisi arrived at work in the secretary department, she learned that Lin Fenfen and another secretary who had broken the tea set together had been fired. The manager announced the recording of their private chat. They said that although they had bumped into Xiao Sisi, causing the tea set to break, Mr. Fu didn't know the truth, so why did he keep siding with the cleaning lady? Mr. Fu was really sick. Of course, the part where they said that Fu Qingye was a pervert, Manager Chen secretly listened to it himself and of course did not announce it to the outside world. Everyone in the secretarial department was shocked. They never thought that Lin Fenfen and the other, who usually seemed like nice people, would actually gang up on an old cleaning lady just to shift the blame. When everyone saw Xiao Sisi again, they all cast sympathetic glances at her. The cleaning lady had it so hard. Her job was hard enough, and she almost took the blame for someone else. Lin Fenfen and the others are really inhumane. If they had just admitted their mistake and not dragged others down with them, President Fu might have been willing to forgive them. As a result, many people smiled kindly at Xiao Sisi, which made her feel a lot better. She knew that Fu Qingye must have asked Manager Chen to investigate the matter in private, otherwise she would have had to bear the blame for breaking her boss's teaware and receiving special treatment for working one more day at Fu's. That afternoon, during her break, Xiao Sisi casually opened her Moments and saw that someone from her hometown had posted a video. She clicked on the video with trembling hands, and it turned out to be her grandmother collapsing under a banyan tree. Many people from her hometown were commenting on the video, but no one came forward to help her grandmother, who was curled up in a ball. She was old, skinny and withered, not even as good as the stray dogs on the street. Xiao Sisi burst into tears as soon as she saw the video. This was the person she was closest to in the world. She swiped down further and discovered that many people in the village had posted videos of her grandmother collapsing under the tree. They were like onlookers at a monkey show, each one acting as if it were a very funny thing to see. They didn't help, and what's more, they posted the videos on Moments and even short video websites to attract attention. Sisi, where have you been lately? This morning your grandmother fainted under the tree. I helped her back to your aunt's house and told them what happened, but they didn't say a word and they didn't take the old lady to the doctor. It's really too much. Your uncle said that she fainted because her feet hurt, that she won't die and that she doesn't need to go to the hospital. Alas, a message came from a childhood friend from the same village. Sisi then learned the whole story. After thanking her, she burst into tears. Grandma's foot could not be treated for even a day, and the old lady endured the pain every day in order not to add to the family's burden. Xiao Sisi thought she had worked very hard to earn the money for the operation, but it was still taking too long. In fact, Fu Qingye had already given her a lot, but Grandma's foot problem had been left untreated for far too long. All day long, Xiao Sisi was distracted. She couldn't help but think about the words Fu Qingye had said to her. You can ask me for money anytime. Sell me, 50,000 at a time. She knows that there is no care in the world without a reason, and that if you want someone's money, you have to pay. Apart from her labor, the only thing that is worth something is her body. Xiao Sisi thought of the image of her grandmother's thin body curled up and fainting under the tree, and it made her feel so bad. She therefore had the idea of asking Fu Qingye for help. That night, she washed herself from head to toe and put on the camisole pajamas Fu Qingye had bought her before. Because they were so revealing, she had never worn them before, but this was the first time. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror for a long time, and finally gathered her courage to open the door. Fu Qingye, who was at his desk, heard the sound of the door and looked up, his gaze fixed. Xiao Sisi had fair, attractive skin, and wearing a red halter neck mini dress, she showed off her well-developed figure to the full. Her hair, half dry, occasionally dripped a little water, and she bit her lip, shyness hiding a hint of charm. The key was her eyes, which seemed to be speaking, gazing deeply at Fu Qingye, as if asking him for help. Fu Qingye could clearly feel himself rapidly arousing. After that night, he did think a lot about that matter, and he only wanted Xiao Sisi. Otherwise, he would not have said that he would buy her 50,000 yuan at a time. While he was wondering, Xiao Sisi had already walked up to him. Her dark, pitiful gaze was still on his handsome face, and her small red lips moved several times, but she didn't dare to open them. Mr. Fu, if you say you can ask me for money at any time, will you still honor your promise? When Xiao Sisi finally found the courage to speak, her fair cheeks seemed to burn, scorching hot. She felt her self-esteem completely shattered. She realized that the poor simply did not deserve self-esteem. Dress like this, just to ask me for money? Although Fu Qingye's whole body was hot, he still vaguely felt a little displeasure. He had thought that the woman was attracted to him and wanted to seduce him, but it turned out to be about money again. You said 50,000 yuan per time, I want to sell twice, is that okay? Xiao Sisi suppressed the feeling of wanting to cry and said something that made her feel extremely ashamed. She had in her hand the 30,000 yuan that Fu Qingye had prepaid last time. The cleaning lady's salary would not be paid until next month, and her grandmother's surgery would cost at least 100,000 yuan, not to mention the nutrition fees during recovery. Therefore, she needed at least 100,000 yuan before she dared to send the elderly woman to the hospital. Fu Qingye's Adam's apple slid. Although she had only approached him because of the money, he couldn't resist the temptation. He had to admit that this woman's body was very attractive to him. Are you sure you want to sell twice? Fu Qingye asked, and put his arm around Xiao Sisi. She fell into his lap, their skin touching. Their bodies felt like they were on fire, burning red. It's best if you can do it twice a night. Xiao Sisi looked up at his face, a little worried that he could only buy it once a night, in which case Grandma's feet would have to suffer for another day. She didn't want to delay any longer. Fu Qingye frowned. How dare this little girl ask him if he could do it again? Don't you know if I can do it? Fu Qingye asked back unhappily. Xiao Sisi felt her ears burning. She was terrified when she thought about that night, when she questioned whether he was able to do it and was subsequently tortured until she passed out. The fear in Xiao Sisi's eyes was obvious, and her small shoulders were hunched together, making her look weak and vulnerable. Fu Qingye could not help himself just by recalling that night. It seemed that he still had not satisfied her that night, which was why she doubted his ability. I don't know if you can make it tonight, Xiao Sisi whispered. She was really conflicted, afraid that he could do it, but also afraid that he couldn't. The next second, Fu Qingye clasped her little head, brought his lips that burned like fire, and kissed her, savoring the taste of her freshness. Chapter 24. It was always hard to say no to her. She didn't even have a chance to catch her breath, as if she had been swallowed up by him. He picked up Xiao Sisi, and she hooked her legs around his waist. The two of them kissed as they walked towards the big bed. Xiao Sisi was pushed onto the big bed. His kisses fell in a fine, dense rain, and it felt more urgent than that night. Xiao Sisi forced herself to relax, but she just couldn't do it. Her body was tense like a dead fish, at his mercy. She knew that a man's body and emotions were separate. His possessiveness towards her in this regard did not mean that he liked and loved her, but was just out of manly instinct. At a man's age like Fu Qingye, he needs it at this time, she thought, and if any woman with good looks dangled her finger in front of him, he would take the bait, right? Thinking that she was just a piece of merchandise, that the two of them had no love but were doing the most intimate thing in the world, she felt ashamed and scared. Even though it wasn't the first time, she still didn't know what to do. Just as Fu Qingye was about to take full possession of her, she instinctively tightened her legs out of fear, while tears of humiliation flowed out. In the sight of Fu Qingye, who was leaning down, the little person was crying like a tearful person, trembling all over, as if she were a broken rag doll. His heart tightened. Damn it! He was almost 30 years old, but he was actually taking advantage of a young girl in distress. Was this something a human being would do? If he agreed to buy her tonight, would he be any different from those old men chasing after her? The heat that had spread throughout Fu Qingye's body instantly faded away. He got up and said, "Forget it." Xiao Sisi realized what was going on and hurriedly sat up. She carefully embraced Fu Qingye from behind and whispered, "I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared. I've ruined your mood. How about I take the initiative this time?" He was afraid that Fu Qingye would be angry and not want to buy it anymore, and then they wouldn't be able to raise the money for grandma's surgery. She wiped away her tears, calmed down, got down on her knees, and went to him. She hung her hands around his neck, gazed into Fu Qingye's eyes, pressed her pure little face close to his, endured the pain, and took the initiative to kiss him awkwardly. The scent of him was very nice, even his breath was fragrant. Fu Qingye's body trembled slightly. He had always been very self-controlled and had decided that if he didn't want it anymore, he wouldn't. But at this moment, he found it difficult to push the little person in his arms away. His hands, placed behind her waist, several times wanted to rub her into his arms, but in the end, he restrained himself. He suddenly changed and grabbed Xiao Sisi's trembling shoulders. The little person was afraid like this, but she was still trying her best to please him, which really made him feel bad. "I can give you the money, just consider it in advance on your salary." After Fu Qingye finished speaking, he pushed Xiao Sisi away completely and left the bedroom. From the direction of the balcony came the sound of a cigarette being lit. Xiao Sisi slumped on the bed, tears sliding down the corners of her eyes. Deep down, she really appreciated Fu Qingye's help. To be honest, although he helped her that night, giving her to a stranger for the first time was more of a trauma. If she sold herself tonight because of the money, she would hate herself for the rest of her life. At this moment, her phone rang. When she opened it, she saw that Fu Qingye had directly transferred 100,000 yuan to her. Xiao Sisi hesitated for a moment, but for the sake of her grandmother, she clicked accept. Then, she sent a message to Fu Qingye. "Thank you, Mr. Fu. I will pay you back as soon as I get paid. I will also work hard to pay off my debts." After reading the message, Fu Qingye took 2 sharp puffs of smoke. One cigarette was not enough to put out the fire, so he smoked 3 more on the balcony alone. He stayed on the balcony until the middle of the night, and only then did the blood in his body gradually return to normal temperature. The next day, Xiao Sisi and Fu Qingye took leave, and since it happened to be a rest day at the company, she hurried back to her hometown early in the morning. Fu Qingye did not ask any questions after he had given the money, giving her complete freedom. When Xiao Sisi returned to her hometown, her aunt Guetsuehong was beaming with joy. "Sisi, have you come to your senses? I'm glad you have. I'll contact Auntie Lu right now and ask her to take you back to the city to work. Don't worry. Auntie Lu has made a fortune with all the girls she's sent there, and every one of them has found a good husband and settled down. She's not afraid of making money." Xiao Sisi rolled her eyes at Guetsuehong and said, "Don't get me wrong. I just came back to take my grandma to the city to get her foot treated." "For a foot operation? Your uncle has taken her to the hospital before. Didn't the doctor say that a large sum of money would be needed for the operation? Do you have the money to pay for it? Don't even think about taking advantage of your uncle and me, we don't have any money." Wei Tsuehong's expression changed immediately. "You don't need to pay, just ask your uncle to help me and grandma go into the city." Xiao Xiang'an's face turned pale. Xiaoyu village is not easily accessible. If Xiao Xing'an, as a son, can't even do this, then she has nothing to say and can only find another way herself. "Sisi, your grandmother's surgery will cost at least 100,000 yuan. Where will you get the money? What's the point of going to the hospital if you don't have the money?" "It's a waste of money for the tests," Xiao Xing'an said. Xiao Sisi ignored them and went straight to the family's woodshed. Grandma Xiao didn't even have a decent room in the house. When she got old, the Xiao family resented the smell of old age on her, and her hands would shake when she ate, so they simply drove her out into the woodshed to live. She ate, drank, and defecated in the old, dilapidated wood shed. The wood room was dark and she saw her grandmother lying on the dilapidated wooden bed, dying. She didn't open her eyes until she heard a voice, and when she saw the person in front of the door was Xiao Sisi, her eyes lit up. Grandma Zhao's vacant gaze lit up in an instant. Sisi? You're back. When Xiao Sisi said she wanted to take her to the city to have her feet seen, Grandma Xiao refused, fearing that she would be a burden. I don't have many years left. Don't waste the money. Just bear with it. Grandma Xiao said. Maybe Grandma Xiao doesn't have many years left, but Xiao Sisi doesn't want her to spend her remaining years in pain. At the very least, she hopes that her grandmother can move normally. With no choice, she had to call Xiao Xingyan and ask him to help her take her grandmother to the city by force. Guo Zuihong originally refused to take Grandma Xiao to get her foot treated, but then she thought, as long as they didn't have to pay, after Xiao Sisi examined Grandma Xiao's foot injury, she might be willing to go sell it with Aunt Lu. This made Xiao Xingyan drive his second-hand van to take Grandma Xiao to the city, and of course, in order to avoid Xiao Xingyan paying the examination fee, Guo Zuihong also went along. When the group arrived at the hospital, Mr. and Mrs. Xiao Xingyan were walking behind them, pretending to wheel Grandma Xiao in a hospital wheelchair, for fear that Xiao Sisi would force them to pay. She really doesn't know her place. She has no money, but she still forced her way into the hospital. In my opinion, she doesn't even have the outpatient fee. Wei Zuihong whispered. Xiao Xingyan agreed. As a result, after consulting the information desk, Xiao Sisi went to the window and paid 1,000 yuan in advance. When she came over to ask them to take her grandmother to the outpatient department, Guo Zuihong looked incredulous. The fact that Xiao Sisi could come up with 1,000 yuan took Guo Zuihong by surprise. Chapter 25, He's tall, handsome, ambitious, and rich. Xiao Sisi had only been in the city for a few days. How could she possibly have earned 1,000 yuan without going out to sell? Could it be that this girl used to steal money when she helped us sell tofu? Where did she get 1,000 yuan? Wei Zuihong whispered. They all treated Xiao Sisi as if she were free labor. She helped out at home and sold tofu, but the family didn't pay her at all. A piece of tofu only sells for 2 yuan, and if you count every day, how could she hide it? Don't you dare falsely accuse Sisi, Xiao Xingyan said. That's really strange. What is she doing in the city to make that kind of money so quickly? Wei Zuihong's question, and Xiao Xingyan didn't know the answer. However, the money for the checkup was a small sum, and she definitely couldn't afford the surgery fee. At this thought, Guo Zuihong's face returned to its poker face. A series of tests were quickly completed, and after reading the report, the doctor frowned and said, "The bones of the elderly are about to break through the skin. Both feet are serious, especially the left foot, which is swollen and rotten like this. Do you know how much pain the elderly are in every day? Why did you only bring her to the hospital now? You should have had the surgery a long time ago." Grandma Zhao's feet were never properly treated after she sprained them when she was young, and she continued to work on the land. Because she could not afford treatment, she kept putting it off, and in her old age, her foot bones were completely misaligned. Of course, Mr. and Mrs. Xiao knew the situation, but they kept turning a blind eye because they did not want to spend the money. Wei Zuihong then asked, "Doctor, how much will the surgery cost? You have delayed this for too long. You need surgery on both feet. You should prepare at least 100,000 yuan for the operation. If you have no problem with that, we can arrange for you to be admitted to the hospital now, and we can conduct a more detailed examination at that time." Guo Zuihong shrugged at Xiao Sisi. "I already told you, don't do this kind of thing that seems like filial piety but actually doesn't mean anything. Just hang out with your Aunt Lu for a while, and you'll have all the money you need." No, I don't need surgery." Grandma Xiao was afraid that her descendants would spend money on her, and when she heard the figure of 100,000 yuan, she was simply terrified. "Uncle, you look after Grandma, I'll go and do the admission formalities." Xiao Sisi ignored Guo Zuihong and strode towards the window. "Admission? Do you have the money?" "You." Wei Zuihong watched as Xiao Sisi walked towards the payment window. She was full of disbelief. Grandma Xiao, on the other hand, wished she could fly home. Her anxious gaze was fixed on Xiao Sisi's back. 100,000 yuan, how could her granddaughter possibly have that kind of money? "Xingyan, you keep an eye on your mother, I'll go and have a look." Wei Zuihong followed her suspiciously to the payment window. The staff at the counter looked at the bill issued by the outpatient doctor and asked, "Do you need to pay by installments or in full?" If you pay in full, you need to pay 100,000 yuan first, and the rest can be reimbursed by medical insurance after you are discharged from the hospital. Pay in full, Xiao Sisi replied. Gui Cuihong watched as Xiao Sisi prepaid 100,000 yuan for the surgery fee and was dumbfounded. Xiao Sisi, where did you get so much money? Did you go to the city and sell something these few days? Her voice was loud, and everyone around her cast strange glances at Xiao Sisi, especially the teller, who also gave the young Xiao Sisi a strange glance. At that moment, Xiao Sisi was embarrassed. But she really appreciated that Fu Qingye had not taken her last night, and had preserved her self-respect. Although her first time was also lost in the 2 trips to the city, the culprit was Guo Cuihong in front of her. In any case, these 100,000 yuan were at least clean money, an advance from Fu Qingye, her rescuer. Anyway, you don't have to pay, so it's none of your business where the money came from. Xiao Sisi replied coldly. Then she took the receipt and returned to her grandmother. Uncle, let's take Grandma to the hospital department, she said. Grandma Xiao in the wheelchair kept shouting that she didn't want the operation and kept asking Xiao Sisi where she got the money. Wei Cuihong and Xiao Xingyan had the same question. Grandma, you have to trust me, the money is clean. Let's do the operation first, so that I can go back to the city to work with peace of mind, Xiao Sisi comforted her grandmother. Although Grandma Xiao felt very guilty, she had already paid the money and could not cause her granddaughter any more trouble. So she shut up and obediently followed the younger generation's arrangements. Guo Cuihong had originally wanted to ask for more details, but Xiao Xingyan was naturally happy to see that someone was paying for his mother's operation, so he did not let Guo Cuihong ask any more questions and simply took Grandma Xiao to the hospital department. At the hospital, after a thorough examination, Grandma Xiao was scheduled for surgery. However, after delivering Grandma Xiao to the hospital, Xiao Xingyan and his wife returned to their hometown. Xiao Xingyan wanted to stay and take care of his mother, but Guo Cuihong was worried that if he did, it would delay the tofu business, and every day they stopped working was a day they lost money. She scolded him and forced him to return to their hometown together, leaving Grandma Xiao in the care of Xiao Sisi. Fortunately, the surgery went very well. However, after the operation, Grandma was quite happy, but after receiving a phone call, she became sullen and would not say why until she was pressed. This morning, your aunt called and asked me where the money for your operation came from. She guessed that you must have sold yourself somewhere. She, tell Grandma the truth. Where did the money come from? Grandma Xiao grabbed Shi by the shoulders. She felt so guilty. She would rather die than have Shi sell herself to pay for the operation. Xiao Sisi knew that if she didn't give her grandmother an explanation, the matter would always be on the old woman's mind. If an elderly person with a heart condition has something on their mind, they may not live long. After stammering for a while, she said, Actually, I didn't sell myself. I have a rich boyfriend who gave me 100,000 yuan. Grandma, don't worry, he's very tall and handsome, ambitious, and has money. He treats me very well. Boyfriend? You're not lying to me, are you? Xiao Sisi is also 20 years old, and if she had a normal boyfriend, she would feel better. How could I lie to you about something like this? Xiao Sisi asked in return. Grandma Xiao still felt uneasy, so she said, Then ask him to come and see Grandma sometime. I also want to know if this boyfriend of yours is someone you can trust. This really troubled Xiao Sisi. Where could she find a tall, handsome, rich boyfriend to meet Grandma? Seeing her in such a difficult situation, Grandma Xiao felt extremely disappointed. She was afraid that her so-called boyfriend was just trying to cheer her up. Where in the world could there be a man as perfect as Xiao Sisi described? And even if there was, how could it be the girl from an ordinary family's turn? Sisi, forget it. The hospital is not a good place, so don't let him come. Grandma Xiao said with difficulty. Sisi knew that although her grandmother said she wouldn't see her boyfriend, she definitely had a knot in her heart when she didn't see the boyfriend she mentioned. After thinking for a long time, she realized that there was no one around her who could be called to deal with her grandmother. However, she suddenly thought of someone who would be particularly suitable to pretend to be her boyfriend and would definitely reassure her grandmother. That person was Fu Qingye. Chapter 26, she definitely wasn't thinking of her. In order to ease her grandmother's worries, Xiao Sisi considered for a long time before mustering the courage to dial his phone number. Fu Qingye was in the middle of a meeting. When the words Xiao Sisi flashed on the screen, he narrowed his deep eyes a little. This girl took the money and disappeared without a trace, and now she's remembered him. Wait a minute, I need to take this call. Fu Qingye walked out of the meeting room with his phone in hand. He had never taken anyone's call in the middle of a meeting before, and this was the first time. The smile in his eyes was so obvious that the company executives couldn't help but whisper to each other. They were discussing an important project for a prime plot of land in the center of Beijing, but who was this caller that was so important that he had to answer the phone at this time? Hello. Fu Qingye's voice was as cold as usual, but it was also extremely magnetic, and it made everyone who heard it melt. Mr. Fu, I'd like to take half a month's leave. Is that okay? I'll apply for it separately with the supervisor in the cleaning department. Xiao Sisi wanted to take leave from the job of pretending to be her girlfriend. Half a month? Fu Qingye's voice was obviously a little displeased. He had thought that Xiao Sisi would be home tonight at the latest, but he never expected that she would be gone for half a month. Damn it, every day he spent time with this woman, and when he didn't see her after work last night, it felt like something was missing in his heart, an empty feeling. During the day at the office, without her under his nose, he was a bit out of it at work today. How dare she take a half-month leave? She's not going to go fall in love with some young guy her age and run off with his money, is she? Xiao Sisi is the type of girl who falls in love easily at her age and is easily cheated on. My grandmother is still in the hospital after her operation, and since there's no one to take care of her, that's why I need to take a half-month leave. Xiao Sisi obediently explained. Fu Qingye then realized that the reason why this girl suddenly wanted to sell herself twice the night before was to pay for her grandmother's operation. Where are your parents? Fu Qingye asked Rin Xiao to check on Xiao Sisi just to find out where she was, and he didn't bother to find out any detailed information. I don't have any parents. There was silence on both ends of the phone, and Fu Qingye's grip on the phone tightened noticeably. Just half a month. If you need to deal with your grandmother's situation halfway through, you should show up as much as possible. Fu Qingye said. Thank you, Mr. Fu. By the way, my grandmother is at the first hospital, not far from your home. If you need me, just give me a call, and I'll be there as soon as I can. Xiao Sisi felt like crying with gratitude. She automatically reported the reason for her absence, her location, and promised to be available at any time. Fu Qingye was satisfied. However, Xiao Sisi was stammering, as if she wanted to say something else. Something else? Fu Qingye asked back. Xiao Sisi wanted him to pretend to be her boyfriend to make her grandmother feel better, but after thinking about it, Fu Qingye really didn't have that obligation. They were just an employer-employee relationship, and he had already given her too much. She really didn't want to trouble him anymore. No, it's fine. You're so nice, Mr. Fu. You're the kindest person I've ever met. Xiao Sisi didn't open her mouth after all. In order not to make Fu Qingye feel strange, she had to change her tone and start praising him. Fu Qingye's lips curled up at the corners. When he put the phone away and returned to the meeting room, his lips were still upturned, looking like he was in love at first sight. Everyone looked at each other and realized that something seemed to be going on with General Manager Fu. After Xiao Sisi finished asking Fu Qingye for leave, she immediately called Zhao, the supervisor of the cleaning department. However, asking Zhao for leave did not go as smoothly. Half a month's leave? Do you think the Fu Group is your family? You can just ask for leave whenever you want? Well, since you're still on probation, just don't come in anymore. Your wages will be transferred to your card. Supervisor Zhao hung up after saying this impatiently. Xiao Sisi knew that her request was excessive, but how could Supervisor Zhao not listen to her reasons, or at least discuss it with her? If that was really impossible, she could just take less leave. Losing her job as a cleaner, she would find it even more difficult to repay Fu Qingye. After about 20 minutes, when Xiao Sisi was feeling really down, Manager Zhao called back. This time, his attitude had completely changed. Sisi, something happened at home just now, and I'm in a bad mood. Don't be offended. You want to take half a month off? Granted. We're a humane company, just treat the company like your home. Xiao Sisi was dumbfounded. Manager Zhao had changed his mind too quickly. What he didn't know was that Manager Zhao was sweating profusely. He had never expected that his superiors would call him specifically to tell him to grant Xiao Sisi's leave of absence. This made him wonder if Xiao Sisi had some powerful backer in the company. Manager Zhao, you just said that. You would take care of this for me. Please, you must come back to work in half a month. Otherwise, I'm afraid he won't be able to keep his position as manager. Although Xiao Sisi was happy after hanging up the phone, she couldn't help but wonder if the difference in Zhao's attitude was related to Fu Qingye. Could it be that Fu Qingye had put pressure on him to let her take leave? She thought that in the Fu group, she only knew Fu Qingye, and only he could help her. Thinking about this, she secretly gave Fu Qingye a few more points in her heart. After getting permission to take leave, Xiao Sisi could finally rest assured and stay in the hospital to take care of her grandmother. However, Xiao Sisi could tell that although her grandmother no longer mentioned having her bring her boyfriend to see her, she was still upset. She could often catch her grandmother looking at her with a heartbroken expression, as if she was convinced in her heart that she had sold her out and only got the money together for her medical expenses because of her. It was really obvious how she blamed herself. Xiao Sisi didn't know how to tell her grandmother about it either. In the blink of an eye, she had been in the hospital for 7 days. That night, she went to the tea room to finish boiling water and was about to return to her grandmother's ward when the phone rang. She took out her phone and found that it was a video call from Fu Qingye at night. Xiao Sisi quickly tidied her hair before answering the phone. On the video call, Fu Qingye was lying in bed, propped up on a light gray pillow, staring at Xiao Sisi on the phone. He hadn't slept well for a few days, so he went to bed early today. While he was sleeping, he had a dream that Xiao Sisi had taken the money and run, and he couldn't get in touch with her directly. After waking up, he still felt a tight pain in his heart, and he couldn't help but call Xiao Sisi on video call. Unexpectedly, the little girl answered the video call pretty quickly. Seeing that she hadn't run away and that he could still get in touch with her, he actually felt relieved. He explained to himself that he just didn't want to be fooled like a fool, and it was definitely not that he missed her. Chapter 27, You really don't know how to repay me? Mr. Fu, is there something wrong that you're calling on video at this hour? Did Grandma come to the house? Do you need me to go back right now? Xiao Sisi asked 3 questions in a row nervously. No, we just need to send Grandma a screenshot of the video. Fu Qingye answered seriously. Xiao Sisi nodded. Then you take the screenshot. She obediently smiled at the camera, her smile pure and watery. The man on the other end of the video couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips as he watched her smile brightly and try her best to cooperate. In order to let Fu Qingye capture a good-looking photo, Xiao Sisi gave the camera the scissor hand sign. Mr. Fu, you also give the scissor hand sign and then take a screenshot for Grandma, Xiao Sisi said. Fu Qingye then realized that he was smiling. Did he get too familiar with her in his usual manner, daring to ask him to do all this? Childish. Have you finished taking the screenshot? Is there anything else? Xiao Sisi had to give the camera a thumbs up on her own. It was as if the two of them had nothing else to say except to deal with Grandma. Xiao Sisi knew her own limitations, so of course she didn't dare get too close to Fu Qingye. Besides, the two of them had kissed more than once, especially the other night. Although it didn't work out in the end, she was kissed all over, and it was no different from having sex. In fact, she was still very ashamed when she saw him. But in order to be worthy of the money he gave her, she pretended to be completely unaffected. Fu Qingye looked steadily at the little face in the video. She was the only girl he had ever seen who was so beautiful without makeup. Mr. Fu? Is the video stuck? Xiao Sisi waved her hand at the screen. Fu Qingye then realized that he had been staring at her, motionless, as if the video had really stuck. He cut the call as he prepared to hang up, embarrassed. Mr. Fu, wait. Xiao Sisi suddenly thought of her grandmother, who had been so depressed all day. She wondered if Fu could video chat with her. That way, the old lady's heart would be relieved, and he wouldn't have to bother going to the hospital. What's up? Fu Qingye rested his head on one hand. My grandmother keeps asking me where I got the money for the operation. I lied and told her I'd met a tall, handsome, ambitious, rich boyfriend. Could you pretend to be my boyfriend and say a few words to her on video chat? In the video, Fu Qingye looked calm and composed. Liar? He's tall, handsome, ambitious, and rich. Isn't that the truth? The main thing is that I can't find such a man around me. You're the only one who matches these characteristics. If I had known, I wouldn't have made my boyfriend sound so perfect. Xiao Sisi was very annoyed. Fu Qingye then raised the corner of his lips imperceptibly. So I'm that perfect in your heart? He asked with a smile. Xiao Sisi's face turned red. It's the truth, you're just being modest. Fine, I'm free right now, so I'll help you out. Fu Qingye said with a reluctant expression. You have to act like you mean it. I told Grandma that you were very nice to me. My grandma just had surgery and can't handle any more excitement. Got it. Xiao Sisi gave a few more instructions, not convinced, before taking her phone and heading back in the direction of the ward. In the ward, Grandma Xiao looked at the ceiling with a vacant gaze. After the operation, her feet no longer hurt as much as before, and the pain in her body had subsided. However, the sadness in her heart was magnified. She hated herself every moment for not dying sooner. Why did she have to make her poor granddaughter sell herself? As she thought about this, a tear rolled down the corner of her eye. Grandma, my boyfriend is calling on a video call. Since he is usually busy at work, I didn't let him come to the hospital. Can I let him video chat with you? Xiao Sisi asked in a low voice, holding the phone. Boyfriend? Really? Grandma Zhao's eyes lit up, and she quickly wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes. Xiao Sisi sat down by the bed, pointed the phone screen at her grandmother, and appeared in the phone screen next to her grandmother. On the other end of the line, Fu Qingye suddenly changed his usual aloof manner and politely waved at Grandma Xiao. Hi Grandma, I'm Sisi's boyfriend Fu Qingye. I've been busy at work recently and haven't been able to visit you in the hospital. Please understand. Sisi, please pass Grandma's reading glasses over here. Grandma Xiao sat up straight with excitement. Sisi Xiao quickly opened the bedside table and took out the reading glasses and handed them to Grandma. After she put them on, she was able to see Fu Qingye's appearance clearly. Even an elderly person could appreciate Fu Qingye's good looks from the screen. Fu, are you really Sisi's boyfriend? You can't be an actor she found somewhere, can you? Grandma Xiao still couldn't believe it. Grandma, she is so pretty, aren't we a mismatch? How could I look like an actress? Fu Qingye smiled and asked in return, without the usual bossy attitude, and was very kind to the elderly. That's right, Grandma also thinks you two are a good match. Grandma Xiao finally revealed a long-lost smile. Xiao Shishi on the side blushed. I didn't expect Fu Qingye to improvise so well. It seems that he has already gained experience in coaxing his own grandmother. Grandma Xiao then realized that although her granddaughter came from a poor background, she looked just like her mother, and was really pretty. Sisi's mother was the village beauty of Xiaoyu village back in the day, and was famous for her beauty. Fu, what do you do for a living? How old are you? Grandma Xiao asked. I'm 29, and I run a company at home. You're 29 and still not married? You're older than our Sisi? Grandma Xiao obviously felt that he was a bit older than Sisi. Fu Qingye was a bit speechless. Another one said he was older. Grandma Xiao, do I look old? Fu Qingye was even more embarrassed about his appearance. It's better to be older, because then you know how to treat people with care, Grandma Xiao replied. In fact, Fu Qingye just wanted the old lady to praise him for being young. His handsome face twitched involuntarily, and the thought of his own grandmother calling him an old cow eating young grass flashed through his mind. Xiao Fu, thank you for helping to pay for the surgery this time. I was worried that Shishi had done something bad out there, but I'm relieved to see that she has you. Grandma Xiao let out a sigh of relief. Fu Qingye looked at the elderly woman's tear-stained face and felt a little embarrassed. After all, he was not as great as the elderly woman thought, and he almost paid for her body. He also realized that she really needed the money for her grandmother's surgery. Grandma, don't worry, this is the least I can do to help Sisi. My life has not been affected in any way. You must get well soon, and when I have some time, I will come visit again. Fu Qingye's nighttime aura was extraordinary. A few sincere words dissolved the knot in Grandma's heart. Xiao Sisi was so grateful through the screen that she wanted to cry. Later, she walked out of the hospital room and thanked him through tears. Mr. Fu, thank you so much. You've helped me so many times, and I don't know how to repay you. Fu Qingye then asked in return, do you really not know how to repay me? He stared at the pure little pitiful person on the screen, as if he were staring at delicious little prey. Chapter 28, Why is he angry? Wronged. In the video, his collar was slightly open, his Adam's apple rolling, and his deep, dazed gaze was full of lust. Xiao Sisi's ear lobes were visibly red. I will work hard to earn money to pay you back. She quickly changed the subject. That night, she barely escaped from the tiger's mouth, and she didn't want to be caught by him again. Fu Qingye seemed to be holding back a little, as if he particularly needed to. In Xiao Sisi's eyes, Fu Qingye was the most lustful man in the world. After all, no other man would want to get her every day. She stammered for a while, unable to help but want to point the way out. Mr. Fu. He looked at Xiao Sisi indifferently. He originally just wanted to tease her, but she rejected him, so he was inevitably disappointed. In fact, if you really want to do that kind of thing and don't want to take responsibility, you can go find a woman who specializes in that. Xiao Sisi said out of goodwill. Fu Qingye's screen once again froze and did not move, and then after he reacted, his face turned pale with anger. He really wanted to give the girl on the other end of the screen a couple of slaps. Did she have some kind of misunderstanding about him? Did she think that he, Fu Qingye, was that desperate? That he wanted to sleep with just any woman? Xiao Sisi, don't ask me for help next time. Fu Qingye hung up the phone directly. Xiao Sisi didn't know why he was so angry. He acted like he really needed it all day, and she was so kind to give him advice, so why was he angry? After all, what kind of woman did Fu Qingye want to sleep with? It was impossible that he was only interested in her, right? What did she say that was wrong? She touched her head, not understanding his thoughts, and turned her head happily back to the ward. Grandma's heart was finally relieved, and she was also relieved. Soon, Grandma Fu recovered and was discharged from the hospital. The doctor advised that she needed to rest at home for at least a month before she could get up. Xiao Sisi took a taxi to take her grandmother back to her hometown. She had originally planned to go back to the city to work after giving her uncle an explanation, as her vacation had already run out. Unexpectedly, Guo Zuihong was exceptionally enthusiastic today when she saw Xiao Sisi, and the family cooked several hot dishes, insisting that Xiao Sisi have lunch with them. When her cousin and cousin were not at home, Xiao Sisi had never seen Guo Zuihong cook so many dishes. What was going on today? Unable to resist Guo Zuihong's enthusiasm, and with her grandmother's reluctant entreaties, Xiao Sisi sat down at the table, only intending to stay for a short while to keep her grandmother company. Sisi, it was wrong of me to keep telling you to go to the city with Aunt Lu. I take back those words, don't be angry with your aunt. I've come to my senses. It's easier for us country folk to stay in the countryside. The city is too complicated, not for us. Guo Zuihong suddenly changed her tone. Xiao Sisi couldn't believe it. How could her attitude change so much? I've already found a job in the city, I have to go back after dinner. Xiao Sisi replied. Forget about work. You know that one-eyed guy in our village? He makes a lot of money as a fisherman, and he's willing to pay 300,000 yuan in bride price to marry you. What kind of job in the city can save up 300,000 yuan? Get a good night's sleep today, the one-eyed guy will be back from sea tomorrow. We'll meet then, and if everything's fine, we'll get married. While eating, Guo Zuihong took it for granted that she would be making the important decisions in Xiao Sisi's life. Xiao Sisi knew that Guo Zuihong was up to something, but she never imagined that she would become more and more shameless. One-eyed dragon, as she was called, had lost an eye in a fight when she was a child, and her mouth was crooked from birth. She was extremely ugly, and although her family was a bit wealthy, no normal girl would want to marry her. Guo Zuihong was actually planning to let her marry someone like that for 300,000 yuan in bride price? She really didn't consider her, Xiao Sisi, as a person. She slammed the table and stood up. It seems that there is nothing delicious about this meal. I won't marry some one-eyed old lady. You take care of yourself, I'm going back to Beijing first, I'll come back to visit you when I have some vacation time. Xiao Sisi said, and tried to turn around and walk away. Guo Zuihong got up and roughly grabbed her arm. Xiao Sisi, you sold yourself to earn the money for your grandmother's surgery, didn't you? You've lost your virginity, so what good family are you looking for? The one-eyed man is a bit ugly, but he's well off, so what's not good about him? The family needs money for everything, so if you don't marry someone and earn some money for the wedding, are you going to let your uncle and I starve to death? Guo Zuihong angrily said. When it comes to being a virgin, Guo Zuihong has touched Xiao Sisi's sore spot. Although Fu Qingye is very nice, which woman doesn't want to fall in love before taking this step? I already have a boyfriend, so I won't marry anyone, let alone a one-eyed man, Xiao Sisi said coldly. Yes, Sisi has a boyfriend. The money for my foot surgery was not dirty money, it was given by Sisi's boyfriend, Grandma Xiao said hastily. She's only been in the city for a few days, and you believe her when she says she has a boyfriend? Old people are so confused, they take everything at face value. Guo Zuihong rolled her eyes at Grandma Xiao. I've seen Sisi's boyfriend, he runs a company at home, and he's a good-looking guy, he's perfect for Sisi, so don't force her. Grandma Xiao was convinced that what she saw was real. Unfortunately, Guo Zuihong still didn't believe her. He runs a company? People aren't blind. Nowadays, rich people only look for partners from similar backgrounds. How could he give her 100,000 yuan just after they started dating? How is that possible? If you say the guy is a bit older and not very good looking, I'd believe you. But handsome and rich? Are you watching a TV show? Xiao Xingyan asked beside her. Mom, where did you see Cece's boyfriend? Did he come to the hospital? No, he just said a few words to me when he was on video chat with Cece. He's a really nice boy. Grandma Xiao is very satisfied with Fu Qingye. Xiao Cece, it's easy to lie to your grandmother, but it's not easy to lie to us. Don't think I don't know that you just found a guy to fool your grandmother so that she can feel at ease. Gui Zuihong simply didn't believe that Xiao Cece had a handsome and rich boyfriend. After all, she felt that Xiao Cece didn't deserve it. She was convinced that she must have sold herself to get that much money in such a short period of time. As the saying goes, don't argue with a fool. Xiao Cece, whether she believed it or not, shook off Gui Zuihong with all her might and planned to go straight back to the city. Gui Zuihong gave a sign, and together with Xiao Xingyan, they took Xiao Cece back and tied her up. The couple had discussed this behind closed doors and had also communicated with the one-eyed man, so naturally they couldn't let Xiao Cece go so easily. What are you doing? Don't do this to Shishi. Grandma Xiao was so anxious that she almost stood up. But she was still recovering and couldn't walk, so she could only worry. Mom, we just want Shishi to stay for the night, and we'll meet with the one-eyed monster tomorrow. We won't do anything to her, Xiao Xingyan reassured her. It's just that the one-eyed monster has a lot of money, and he may not necessarily like her, Gui Zuihong said. Chapter 29, her heart was in turmoil, so she came to her. They took Xiao Cece's phone and locked her in the utility room where she had been living. The couple discovered that Xiao Cece had actually replaced her old, broken phone with a high-end one, which they had given her when it was about to break down. Where did Cece get the money to buy this phone? It must cost more than 10,000 yuan, right? Xiao Xingyan muttered. Where else could it come from? She must be as vain as her mother, selling herself to buy this rubbish. Gui Zuihong said that Xiao Cece's phone was rubbish, but in fact she hid it tightly, planning to keep it for herself. Xiao Cece was desperate. Because she had promised Fu Qingye that she would go back to his house tonight, and she had to start cleaning tomorrow, she was now faced with a musty utility room, with no one to turn to. The next day at noon, when Cyclops and his mother came to the house, Xiao Cece was taken to the living room. However, in order to prevent her from being dishonest and talking nonsense, she was still tied up with a rope, and her mouth was also sealed with a seal. Cyclops didn't even have an eyeball in one eye, his mouth was crooked to the side of his normal eye, and even his nose was crooked. The skin on his face was pitted, and just one look would give you nightmares. As soon as he entered the hall, he stared at the bound Xiao Cece with his only eye, his face revealing the hunger and thirst of a 29-year-old single woman. Unfortunately, at the same age of 29, he and Fu Qingye were poles apart, one strikingly handsome, the other horribly ugly. Son, what do you think of this one? Do you like it? The one-eyed man's mother asked. The one-eyed man saw Xiao Cece and his mouth watered. Naturally, he nodded vigorously. I like it, I like it. This is the one, don't need to look at anything else. I told you you'd be satisfied. The 300,000 yuan will be transferred to my account now, and you can take her away. My niece is quite stubborn, you'll need to spend some time training her. Gui Zuihong had been afraid that they wouldn't like Xiao Cece. Seeing that the one-eyed man liked her so much, she let out a sigh of relief. At the same time, she couldn't help but despise her in her heart, just like her mother, she was a natural flirt. What's so hard to train? Once she's pregnant with our long-lost child, she'll naturally behave herself. The one-eyed dragon's mother replied disdainfully. They simply treated Xiao Cece like a piece of merchandise and started trading her like that, completely ignoring her own wishes. Xiao Cece could not speak, shaking her head with tears streaming down her face, but no one cared. Her only care, her grandmother, was locked in the woodpile shed and could not get out to stop it. She could only howl loudly from the woodpile shed. Xingyan, you can't do this to Cece, she has a boyfriend and a job in the city, you have to let her go. If you don't let her go, I'm not finished with you. Unfortunately, no one believed it, and no one paid any attention to what Grandma Xiao said. Don't pay any attention to that old woman, she's crazy. Our Shishi is only 20 years old, where would she get a boyfriend in the city? Gui Zuihong said. The one-eyed man's mother was finally relieved. Xiao Cece let out a whimper from her mouth, which was sealed with a seal. It didn't sound loud, but it was actually heart-wrenching. The one-eyed man obviously couldn't wait any longer. While his mother and Gui Suihong were haggling over the price, he couldn't help but reach up and try to touch Xiao Sisi. As soon as he approached, he gave off a smell of someone who hadn't bathed for a long time, mixed with a strong earthy smell, which almost made Xiao Sisi vomit. Seeing that his hand was about to reach her chest, Xiao Sisi widened her eyes and lifted her legs to kick the one-eyed dragon. The one-eyed dragon stumbled backwards and fell, while Xiao Sisi slid off the chair and sat on the ground, her bottom hurting like hell. The Cyclops mother doted on him, and when she saw Xiao Sisi dare to kick her precious son, she took a few steps forward, grabbed Xiao Sisi's hair and slapped her hard in the face, left and right. Xiao Sisi's eyes immediately filled with stars. She was completely plunged into darkness. If she were to be sold like this, she would have to live a life worse than death in the future, and she would never be able to see the light again. Indeed, everything is decided at birth, and she was unable to fight against her fate. Perhaps the year after her father died and her mother resolutely left, she was already destined to be a puppet in the hands of her uncle's family. Just as the one-eyed mother was about to raise her hand again to slap her in the face, someone's voice came from the courtyard. "Is this the right house?" When Xiao Sisi heard Fu Qingye's voice, she even thought she was dreaming. She called out to Mr. Fu in her heart, but unfortunately, her mouth was sealed, so she couldn't make a sound. "Who is that outside?" The one-eyed woman's mother heard someone coming and asked nervously while holding Xiao Sisi's hair. "Maybe they're here to buy tofu," Gui Suihong said. The Xiao family sold tofu, soft tofu, soy milk, dried tofu, etc., so the family's courtyard door was always open. They thought they were just ordinary customers from the village who had come to buy tofu, but when the tall and handsome Fu Qingye entered the hall from the light, everyone looked at him in shock. He had broad shoulders and a narrow waist, long, straight legs, a handsome face and pale skin. Dressed in a hand-tailored suit, he looked like a paper doll cut out of a comic book, so perfect it was hard to believe. Everyone in Xiaoyu village had lived there for so many years, and they had never seen a man with such an aristocratic air. Ren Chao followed right behind him. Unfortunately, Ren Chao's appearance was considered good-looking among ordinary people, but standing next to Fu Qingye, he became an unremarkable green leaf. Everyone just stared at Fu Qingye. As soon as Fu Qingye entered the hall, he bumped into Xiao Sisi's red eyes. She stared at him excitedly, her mouth unable to speak, but her eyes already told him everything. It felt like every time they met, she was like a poor little rabbit, either with red eyes or crying. Fu Qingye's whole heart felt stuffy as if it had been tied together. Originally, Xiao Sisi had promised him that she would be back last night, but in the end, he didn't see her late at night, and her phone was not connected. He even thought that Xiao Sisi might not have planned to come back because she had cured her grandmother's illness. A fake girlfriend and a little cleaning lady, even if she doesn't come back, he shouldn't have cared about it, but he was so distracted in the morning that he couldn't even read the documents, so he asked Ren Chao to drive him to Xiaoyu village. He never expected to run into Xiao Sisi in such a predicament. He gasped, wondering what would have happened to the girl if he hadn't come. If he had hesitated for even half an hour, the one-eyed man and his mother would have dragged Xiao Sisi away. "Who are you? Buying tofu? Why haven't I seen you before?" Gui Suihong asked in a row. He wanted to speak, but Ren Chao. However, Fu Qingye stopped him and preempted him, saying, "I'm Sisi's boyfriend." "What are you doing? Tying someone up in broad daylight?" Xiao Xingyan and Gui Suihong exchanged glances. They thought of Grandma Xiao in the direction of the woodshed, who had just shouted that Xiao Sisi had a boyfriend and said she had seen her boyfriend. Seeing a man claiming to be Xiao Sisi's boyfriend at this time, he was indeed as handsome and dashing as Grandma Xiao had described, with an extraordinary temperament, and it was obvious that he was a person in a high position. "Why don't you let go?" Fu Qingye's cold eyes were like sharp knives, and they were cast on the one-eyed mother's hands, which were gripping Xiao Sisi's hair. Chapter 30. I told you that Sisi has a boyfriend, didn't I? The one-eyed mother had never been unreasonable, but at this moment, she inexplicably feared Fu Qingye's authority. As soon as she let go, Ren Xiaofei kicked her, sending her tumbling to the ground. Seeing this, the one-eyed man tried to hit Ren Xiao, but he was quickly knocked to the ground by a few punches and kicks. "Gui Suihong, didn't you say your niece didn't have a boyfriend yet? At such a young age, she's already looking for a man, and you still want to trick me into paying a 300,000 yuan bride price? You're really asking for a lot." The one-eyed man's mother cursed at Gui Suihong as she lay on the ground. "I really didn't know this." Gui Suihong looked up and down at the unrealistically gorgeous Fu Qingye. Fu Qingye then understood the whole story. If he had been even a little bit late, Xiao Sisi would have been sold by her aunt. "Get out!" Ren Chao shouted. The one-eyed man's mother was afraid of being beaten again, so she shut up. The mother and son held each other up and fled, not daring to take Xiao Sisi with them. Xiao Xingyan and his wife were shaking with fear. The main thing was that they had not expected Xiao Sisi, who had only been in the city for a few days, to actually find a backer. Regardless of whether the man in front of them was her boyfriend or not, Xiao Sisi had been bullied as much as she liked while she had been in their home for so many years. Apart from her useless grandmother, when had anyone ever stood up for her? This was the first time someone had stood up for Xiao Sisi. "Young man, I am Sisi's uncle. Are you really her boyfriend? Did you pay for my mother's surgery last time?" Xiao Xingyan stepped forward to confirm. Fu Qingye ignored him and walked straight up to Xiao Sisi, picked her up from the ground, and untied the ropes around her. Then he tore off the gag in her mouth. Xiao Sisi was finally able to breathe in a big way. Fu was going to call him Mr. Fu, but then he remembered that he had pretended to be her boyfriend in front of her grandmother, so Xiao Sisi quickly changed her mind. "Shengya, why are you here?" Xiao Sisi was full of disbelief, and the emotion in her eyes was palpable. She was really overjoyed and touched, and she really had the urge to give herself to him, even if he wasn't responsible. After all, he had saved her life again. If he hadn't appeared in time, she would have been bought by the one-eyed man, and he would have definitely locked her up and forced her to be his wife until she gave him a child, after which she would have regained her freedom. Last night, just thinking about this outcome made her whole body tremble with fear. He took in all these emotions. "I promised to go home last night, but I didn't see you come back, so I had to come find you." Fu Qingye tried his best to suppress the inexplicable anger that had come over him, and his voice was calm but contained a tremor. "You really are Sisi's boyfriend, right? How old are you? I heard from her grandmother that your family runs a company. What do you do?" Wei Hong asked. Wei Hong was quite resentful because he had ruined her chances of collecting a large bride price. However, Fu Qingye looked extraordinary, and if he was the one who paid for the operation, then it meant that his family had a lot of money, and perhaps the bride price would be even higher? Thinking about this, she suppressed her anger at the ruined deal and spoke to Fu Qingye as calmly as possible. "If I heard you correctly, you were going to sell Sisi just now? Since you are so heartless towards her, from now on, don't ever call yourself her family again," Fu Qingye said coldly to Wei Hong. The next second, he squeezed Xiao Sisi's hand and dragged her straight towards the direction of the courtyard gate. Wei Hong rushed up to block their way. "Young man, I am Xiao Sisi's aunt. Her parents are both gone. I have worked hard to raise her up to this age. What's wrong with making decisions about her marriage? What do you mean by selling? You can't talk like that. Let me tell you, if you like my Shishi and want to take her away, then sit down and talk about the bride price. As soon as the money is paid, you can take her wherever you like," Wei Hong said bluntly. Fu Qingye didn't know how he felt after hearing this, and Xiao Sisi felt extremely embarrassed. How could she ask a man she had just met for a bride price? Right, Wei Hong is someone with no bottom line, so what wouldn't she do for money? "Don't mind him." Xiao Sisi shook her head at Fu Qingye. "But my grandmother is locked in the woodshed with them, so I need to explain a few things to her before I go." Xiao Sisi was worried that if she just left like that, my grandmother would think she had been sold, and it would be bad for her heart. Fu Qingye then stopped pulling her along. He turned to Wei Hong with great authority and said, "Sisi and I have just started dating, and we haven't even discussed marriage yet. Even if that day comes, I will discuss our marriage with grandma, and in any case, it will not be your so-called aunt who makes decisions about her marriage." "What do you mean it won't be me making the decisions? After her parents passed away, I raised her as her mother, and you're saying I can't make decisions about her marriage?" Wei Hong retorted. "Have you really fulfilled your role as a mother?" Fu Qingye retorted. Even Wei Hong was silenced. This was the first time that someone had spoken up for Xiao Sisi and silenced Wei Hong. She looked at Fu Qingye with a subtle sense of admiration. He was mature and composed, and even in the presence of older people, he exuded an air of authority. She felt safe next to him and was not afraid of being bullied. Wei Hong paused, wanting to say something else, but Ren Chao took a step forward and stared at her with a sinister look. Thinking about the image of the one-eyed man and his mother being beaten by Ren Chao just now, Wei Hong shut up. Xiao Sisi opened the door to the woodpile room and wheeled her grandmother out in her wheelchair. Grandma finally got to see Xiao Sisi's tall, handsome, rich boyfriend in person, and he was even better looking in person than in the videos. Grandma Xiao couldn't stop smiling when she saw Fu Qingye. I told you that Cici had a boyfriend, didn't I? You didn't believe me, but now do you believe me? Isn't he tall and handsome? The young man is even more handsome in person than in the video. Grandma Xiao was full of pride. Seeing that Xiao Cici was safe and sound, she also let out a sigh of relief. What's the use of being handsome? You still need to have rice to eat, said Gui Hong sourly. Xiao Xing'an, who was standing nearby, whispered, Cui Hong, you should keep quiet. Shishi's boyfriend can pay for our mother's surgery, unlike those who have no money. Look at the one next to him, could he be his bodyguard? Do you really think this is a TV show? He's not even a bodyguard. Maybe they're both just small fry. As soon as she finished speaking, she received another glare from Ren Xiao. He rolled up his sleeves, tilted his head, and scared the soul out of Cui Hong. Ah Fu, thanks to you arriving in time, I already told her aunt and uncle that Shishi has a boyfriend, but they just wouldn't believe it. I was so worried just now. Grandma Xiao said to Fu Chengye. Don't worry, Grandma, I will protect Shishi from now on and won't let her get hurt again. Fu Chengye put his arm around Xiao Shishi's shoulders. She couldn't tell from his gaze whether he was acting along or being serious.